All right. Council will come to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please all rise and salute the flag and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will take now a moment of silence and standing in honor of our veterans, servicemen and women, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, including the 3 soldiers that were killed this week in Jordan. Thank you. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne-Hayes. Here. Councilor Condon. Here. Councilor Crowe. Here. Councilor Linehan. Councilor McDonald. Here. Councilor O'Malley. Here. Councilor Sika. Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Spadafora. Councilor Taylor. Here. Council President Winslow.
Here. Yeah, I did receive a communication from Councilor Spadafora. He had a business conflict and could not make it tonight. So thank you. And so next order of business is guest citizens achievement and announcements. Oh, let's see. I'm sorry. One other technicality. Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that UMA, Urban Media Arts, will be recording this evening's meeting. So just be aware there will be an audio and video recordings of the meeting. And then the first order of business.
In accordance with paper 311-23, City Engineer Yem Lip and Transportation Planner Jack Witthaus will appear before the Council to present an update on the signalization of the Center Street Bus Lane Pilot Project and will also report on the city's Complete Streets program.
So I am going to ask our Transportation Planner Jack Witthaus to introduce himself and do a presentation on the Complete Streets plan first. Thank you, Mr. Witthaus. Let's see, let's see. All right, yeah, the mic should be working for you, Jack.
See if I can do this right.
Oops.
Thank you very much, Honorable Council President and members of the Council. My name is Jack Witthaus. I'm a Transportation Planner in the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. Council President Winslow asked me to give you a brief introduction. I am new to Malden. Been here for 6 months. I come here by way of 36 years of transportation planning and engineering experience, both in the public and private sector, but primarily in municipal planning and engineering. I started those long years ago in municipal planning and then regional planning in Santa Cruz, California. Before I came to Malden, I did consulting for 4 or 5 years in the private sector, working on expressway planning, transportation technology planning, and campus planning for Stanford University. I am from California, but I'm now, after a year and a half, a Boston resident, and the bulk of my career was with the city of Sunnyvale in California. Sunnyvale is the 2nd largest city in Silicon Valley, and the 20-plus years I was there, I was the transportation and traffic manager running the transportation department for that city. I come out of retirement to work for Malden. I'm here part-time. I'm very pleased to be here. It's a really wonderful place to work and a great opportunity, so thank you very much for having me. Tonight I'm going to give you an update on our Complete Streets planning. Complete Streets is one of several transportation planning initiatives that the city is undertaking. Here you have a list of some of the things that are keeping me busy in my time here. What are Complete Streets? Complete Streets, the intent of Complete Streets is to enable safe access to to our streets for all users of all ages and all abilities. It's a approach to street planning and engineering to recognize the points of view of all users. Not only things like the congestion relief, automobile planning, but and of course safety, but looking at multimodal demand, taking into things demographics like environmental justice and health, of course taking into account our economy and primarily the overall livability of our communities. Is the primary intent of complete streets planning. Why are we doing complete streets planning? We're always trying to move people as efficiently, equitably, and safely as possible. The simplest way for me to summarize complete streets planning over what has kind of been the operating dominant paradigm for the last, 40 or 50 years is that we're looking more at people now rather than focusing on vehicles. Another very good reason to do complete streets planning is the law. In Massachusetts alone, there's at least 4 laws that talk to doing a complete streets approach. Our statewide transportation plans, again, several plans at several different levels, take the complete streets approach, and so to be consistent with our state planning efforts is another reason. And a very primary reason is funding. Planning for complete streets opens up opportunities, windows for the city of Malden to realize funding for needed transportation improvements. Why specifically are we doing it in Malden? How are our streets not complete? Well, we have a mediocre sidewalk network. Our sidewalk network is not complete. It's in okay condition, great in some areas, not so great in others, and missing in other areas. Our traffic signal system is substandard. We have many features of the system that are just plain obsolete. We have a fragmented bikeway network. Transit facilities, we recently completed a transit action plan. It compared against the MBTA's minimum standards. A number of locations in our city don't meet minimum bus stop standards. Accessibility standards to bus stops is another thing that falls within the city's purview that we could stand to improve. Generally, if you looked at roadway design standards, the MUTCD is a commonly looked to federal design standard. Our roadway designs are somewhat relaxed. So it's another reason to keep looking at our streets, keep managing, designing, planning our streets. And the bottom line is we have a complete streets policy that we have adopted. So we are doing complete streets planning because it is our city policy. The planning approach that we're currently taking with complete streets is to do citywide comprehensive planning. So instead of looking at spot locations to do complete streets kinds of improvements, the current planning effort is looking at the city holistically, comprehensively. It's looking at all of our major streets. I want to draw a distinction here. The complete streets plan that I'm managing currently is the major street plan for the city. So it's looking at arterial streets and collector streets. Those major streets that are intended to move more traffic to connect more areas. That's as opposed to neighborhood streets, those minor streets that provide direct access to homes primarily. We are doing concurrently a traffic calming plan and program that will be looking at neighborhood streets. The impetus for the city's, specific impetus for the city's complete streets planning is the Mass DOT Complete Streets Program, which was adopted in 2016. That's a 3-tiered program that the city is well invested in. The first tier of that is that adoption of a complete streets policy, which the city completed in 2016. That policy's been in place. Then there's a required planning effort. And in 2017, we completed a document called Complete Streets in Malden, which is, the acronym is a Complete Streets Prioritization Plan. And that's a document that MassDOT, they prescribe what needs to be in it. we did that study, we prepared our plan, submitted it to MassDOT, and got it approved in 2017. The reason for doing those first two steps is step 3 is funding for improvements. The initial round in the MassDOT Complete Streets program, which has been completed, yielded 2 grants to the city, totaling over $1 million. It funded 23 separate distinct bike and pedestrian improvements of various types around the city. These are things like curb ramps, curb extensions, islands, the Florence Street bike lane, traffic signal modifications for accessibility. So it was a whole host of things that the city came up with in that specific Complete Streets MassDOT funding program paid for. There was a cap on that program in the first year, and so we have essentially exhausted our opportunity in the first year. But the city did good in that round. Currently, we are doing the second prioritization plan. There's now a round 2. It requires the city to update that Complete Streets prioritization plan. So we are in the process of doing that now. As of March 2023, we retained the firm of Tool Design. They are our planning consultant. Since that time, they have done a public outreach effort and a research effort to determine a set of potential needs. That outreach effort involved the Sustainable and Equitable Transportation Committee. There was a number of public events. There was a consultation with city staff. And what that effort has yielded is a list of potential projects that could be fed into a Complete Streets plan. The way, as I mentioned, the way that the approach that we're taking to the second plan, though, is a little bit different in that we're trying not to assemble just a list of candidate projects for the sole purpose of getting that programmatic specific funding from that one MassDOT program. This time we're going to try to do a more holistic, enduring plan, a citywide plan that we can use into the future. It really would become a tool, not just for this one Complete Streets program, but for funding the many funding opportunities that come to the city through the myriad of transportation grant funding programs that are out there. So it's going to become a major street city transportation plan. What we're doing now is we're mapping the existing conditions, how complete our streets are, those major and arterial streets. We're putting together a street typology, kind of a status of where do our streets currently fit within the notion of what a complete street could be. Now, without getting too technical, there is no one size fits all for what a complete street is. There is some variability in there. There is strategies you can take. There's different things you can emphasize. You can mess around with geometrics. So we're doing this street typing so we can go in and map out strategies for the entire street network with some flexibility and, of course, with the community's input on what our streets can look like to meet those broad-based needs of all of our streets users. So the strategy, as I mentioned, is to end up with a enduring overall plan that we can use into the future and to come up with a universe of potential project funding candidates. So our next steps coming up in the next couple of months, we have that project list that we put together through the outreach process. We want to reconcile that project list with our typology map. We want to populate that map. We want to do some prioritization of projects. We're going to bring that typology map and some strategy alternatives to the SETC in February and March. And then we hope to complete a prioritization plan that we can submit to the state for funding eligibility in April of 2025. So what about that funding? So again, the impetus for doing Complete Streets planning was that initial MassDOT's program. We're trying to do complete streets planning now to provide a bigger picture plan. We explore all funding opportunities, lots of funding opportunities. The Complete Streets funding program is one of many that are out there, and the next round will make available a max of $500,000. $500,000 may sound like a lot of money, but really in the world of transportation, it's a drop in the bucket, and compared to our city's needs, it's definitely a drop in the bucket. I'll just throw out, for example, we have a set of traffic signals in town that are particularly obsolete. They feature these pedestrian signals that they haven't been around since, I think even before I was born. To rebuild those, we need to rebuild the entire traffic signal because the systems are so obsolete. The underground works are not repairable. To do just one of those locations might eat up close to the entire $500,000 that might be available for that program. So we want to use our Complete Streets program to bring in as much money as possible from the spending programs as possible. Right now we have 13 applications currently pending in other programs. This Complete Streets plan will do good to better inform and support all of our funding applications. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, any questions or comments from council? Councilor Simonelli. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Councilor Linehan. Let's see. Let's see. Let me just see. All right. Just see. Okay, let's take it. There we go. All right, there we go. Councilor Linehan.
Okay, thank you, Council President. Jack, thank you so much for coming. It's delightful to see you here. I know a lot of us have been eager to have you come before us since you started, so welcome and thank you. I wanted to also just say that I really appreciate how you're centering this on people instead of, vehicles or infrastructure or whatever. I think that human-centered approach is really, really important, and I wanted to just thank you for that because I think it's very important in how we approach, how we plan for our city. I also just had a couple quick questions, and I'm sure others do too, so I'll be brief. I'm wondering, for the planning that you're doing now for the next phase of the Complete Streets plan, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you're reaching transit riders and pedestrians. I know on the new city website it mentions that there's pop-ups, events, and non-traditional outreach methods, which I love because I think that, expecting people to come to a meeting on Zoom or in City Hall isn't necessarily going to reach all the users of the streets. So that was kind of my initial question, just if you can talk a little bit about the outreach you're doing. And then also, what's the right way for residents to plug into this effort? And for councilors, I think we hear a lot about requests for enhancements to our pedestrian infrastructure. Reducing speeding and improving walkability is like probably the two top things that I get emails about. So what are the best ways for councilors and the public to plug into this effort and not add to your squeaky wheel problem where you're trying to make this a data-informed approach and really be intentional about it?
Well, I don't want to say that the opportunity is past, but there has been an outreach effort associated with this.
Excuse me, can we turn on
let's
this
see,
mic?
1 second, Jack. Yeah, okay. All right, let's see. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's see. There we go. We got you back, Jack. So, okay. All right, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Myself. Okay.
Well, as I mentioned, there has been an outreach effort that was conducted as the first phase of this current planning effort. It did happen before I started, so I can't tell you about the details, but what you're reading on the website is essentially a summary of what that effort entailed. There was appearance at several events, I understand. There was the committee involvement, and I believe that there was open public meetings to the public. Just based on the amount of, this project list that I have, a substantial amount of information was taken in from the community. At the current juncture, we're kind of running up against a deadline to get our plan finished by April. So there's not going to be another extensive round of input prior to that mandated plan being completed. But I think planning is a continuum. I think that there's always going to be input taken. And the beauty of having a plan is now we have a place to put that input and keep it lasting.
Okay. Let's see. I skip you ahead there. Let me turn the podium off here. Okay, let's see if I can. All right, sorry. Just go. So Councilor Linehan, go ahead. You guys have to
Yeah,
take
I
that.
just wanted to say thank you, and also just to share that I know the plan that existed before. I know Councilor Crowe was very involved in that and previous planners. I know my ward has definitely benefited from it, but I will say that it's a good feeling to know that it's grounded in data and that the priority is going to where the need is based most. So if an intersection in my ward comes up when it's the next time to allocate funding to a complete streets project, I feel good knowing that it's because that's actually where the need is, and I don't have to worry about trying to push for my projects versus someone else. I know they go in order of where the need is greatest, so I just wanted to, for anybody listening, we do have a really good process already, and hopefully this builds on that, and that we can continue, like you said, it's a continuum, and that engagement can continue to flow in even when the plan is complete. So thank you for that.
All right. So I apologize. I'm having a little difficulty as I try to go back and forth between the podium and councilors. It's knocking people out. So Councilor Simonelli's queued up now, and then I'll go back. Ask your questions, then I'll go to Jack, and then people can queue up again after that. Thank you. Great. Go ahead. What? It knocks the councilors off, so there's something funny going on. So Councilor Simonelli, you're up now. So.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President. And Jack, welcome aboard on the city, and I wish you a lot of luck. And I have some questions. I've put a paper in here tonight to call you up and a few others to just talk about, and I'm not trying to make an inquisition out of this thing. I know you can't go in the past and recreate it. If we all could up here, we would all try and do that for our own reasons, and you can't do that. But the whole idea tonight was to discuss on, how we got here and where we are and where we're going. And, I think I just heard you say something about you're pressed for time for the Phase 2 plan is underway, and you're kind of pressed for time. Is that what you said? Kind of under the gun. Kind of under the gun.
All right, let me get to Jack. Okay. All right, go ahead, Jack. Yeah. Sorry now. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Great. You're up, Jack. So, what do we?
For the upcoming MassDOT Complete Streets funding program,
Oh, he just turned.
there is a requirement that the state resubmit its project prioritization plan, an updated plan. And that deadline is April. And that's to make us eligible for funding in May. And that's the total funding available is $500,000 in this current round.
And that's for phase 2 or round 2 that you're saying? And that's at, where's that location?
That's it.
Where will that location be?
Hasn't been decided yet.
There we go.
All right, so I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of the situation that's been. My homework on this, on the complete streets in the Route 60 corridor, and and what it's telling me is that we've had this problem in the past on rushing these things through, and then we end up with problems moving forward. For instance, I put a paper in tonight was to have yourself, Yem Lip, and whoever else would like to come up and tell me about the antiquated light system that was supposed to have been put in prior to the paint being put on the ground, and why that wasn't done, who gave the permission to go ahead and do that. And I don't think you're the guy for that because you weren't here, so I don't want to put you in a hot seat for that. And I just would, I will defer to my council president here because I don't want to, if you want to put it in some sort of order,
No,
that's fine
Counselor,
with me.
Yem is here tonight. We're going to talk about after the complete.
Do you want him to
registration.
just finish up first?
We want him to finish up first. And then
Okay,
Yem
so
will
I'll
come
hold
up.
back
yeah,
until that happens.
Yeah, so
All
if
right?
you have
So
questions
thank you.
on that, so. All right, are you done, Counselor Simonelli?
Yes.
All right, so Counselor McDonald. Oops, sorry. Go again, press the button.
All right, thank you, Council President.
you're
Thank
up.
you so
Okay,
much,
I
Jack,
think
for
we got it
being
right.
here, and I'm really excited. Just so a clarification, first is, so your slides say May 2025 and October 2025. Do you mean 2024, or are we talking about a year from now?
No, you're correct, 2024.
Okay, great, thank you. So I understand the need to just update this plan, which is separate from our actual implementation of any of these other pieces. You know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to talk a little bit more in the future. You and I have been in communication about an earmark that the city of Malden received, especially working with Representative Altrino, to specifically focus on pedestrian safety projects and some of that neighborhood streets traffic calming. And so that will give us the ability to support smaller scale interventions, not the kind of big, you know, the bigger projects that are more grant funded, that can open up entire corridors, but just the day-to-day to slow people down. You know, I live on Pierce Street and people scream up and down, they're going 45 miles an hour, you know, and you know, there's lots of kids on our street. I'm not alone in that. It's a citywide issue. So could you just say a little bit more about how some of those traffic calming on the neighborhood streets where we're having some serious speeding problems factor into the planning about this, or just anything you're able to share about the really helpful systematic approach you're thinking about for using that earmark this year?
Good. Go ahead. If you're ready.
It's an open comment question.
It's open mic again, so thanks.
Well, as I mentioned, the city is undergoing a parallel planning process for neighborhood streets, and it will focus on traffic calming. While I'm not prepared to give you a real in-depth presentation tonight, traffic calming basically is engineered devices focused on, typically focused primarily on issues of neighborhood speeding, neighborhood cut-through traffic, those kinds of traffic that really don't belong in our neighborhoods. And so there are devices you can use to discourage that kind of traffic. We are once again taking a citywide approach to traffic calming to evaluate where issues are and what kind of devices can be used effectively. It is not a matter of just throwing a speed hump wherever you want it. Again, we're being concerted about this and doing planning and figuring out where things go. That earmark is going to go a long way towards implementing a pilot project, implementing a first traffic calming project in the city. We haven't determined yet where that will go, but that is the intent for that earmark funding.
That's great. And I just want to appreciate how much hard-won experience you bring to this job. I think that we all have opinions about transportation, but you are an actual transportation planner who's seen what happens when you put a speed bump in the wrong place willy-nilly. So I just appreciate that learned wisdom that you're able to bring to all of this decision-making that helps us kind of see around the corners and make better systematic choices and check, you know, as Councilor Linehan said, our initial read of any situation with the kind of data and systematic approach. So I just wanted to really appreciate how you bring that to this role. Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Council President. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Witthaus, for your presentation tonight. It's super helpful. I also want to thank Councilor Crowe for pushing the Complete Streets policy through the first time, and for Mayor Christensen for signing that originally and eventually being endorsed by the City Council. I think it's a great policy document that really does focus how are we going to spend our money, where are we going to spend our money, and how we plan on planning traffic, with taking into consideration all modes of traffic. It can't just be considering certain modes. I do like your idea of using the funding for Complete Streets to try to maximize other grant programs like TIP and some of the other ones that you mentioned in your presentation. So I think that's great. I had two questions. I have had an idea, and I wonder if there's a way we can implement this and how we would do that. And I'd like to work with you and the administration if we could do that. I'm familiar with like a program called Donors Choose in the school department. So if, say, parents or friends of students want to be able to donate money directly to a classroom, they can choose what things are needed in the community or in the school system. I'm wondering if a similar donors choose type of system could be used for transportation planning. So if you have residents that think there needs to be a crosswalk in this particular place, or there needs to be some other type of improvement, if the residents can use this app or whatever it is to donate money to do feasibility planning, design, and then eventually construction, I'm wondering if this is a way that we can target and have some intervention in terms of where people would like to see stuff. It's just an idea. Again, more money is never a problem, I think, when it comes to planning a city. But that's something that, we could potentially look at. I'm not sure if there's any prohibitions on that. City Council would probably have to accept a gift like that. But it's just something I've thought it's worked for the school systems. I wonder if it could work for transportation planning. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's probably a question that is going to require more disciplines than just myself to answer. The finance question, I think you're absolutely right that gift of funds, or there's a gift of funds question there. I think that you can't let the money drive the improvement necessarily. I mean, the improvement has to be justified, and there's those kinds of questions. So you'd have to set up, criteria for how that would happen.
Perfect.
It's an interesting idea, and in my mind spurs a lot of questions.
Yeah, because we have see, click, fix, and everyone's like, this button's not working, or this something's not working, and people are just putting their data and their feedback on see, click, fix. I'm wondering if there could be an option to be like, and here's $5 to help with that. Maybe it's not a good idea. I don't know. It's just something I thought of. The other question I had, and I get this question a lot from residents, and I've gotten different answers from the Traffic Commission, et cetera. But I see them in surrounding communities, particularly in Medford. Do not enter rush hour residents only. I hear they're illegal, but Medford does it, and they don't seem to be taken down. Is there a way in which we could put up do not enter resident only during rush hour signs and see if the state actually cracks down on it? Because, just looking at what's going on in Medford, it seems as though this is a blind spot for the state.
That's probably a legal question.
Okay.
Not being super familiar with Massachusetts law. A public street is a public street, so restricting it to certain uses, there would have to be some sort of statute, I think, to back that up. I don't know if that exists.
Okay. I appreciate it. That's what I was expecting. I just figured it was a good question to ask out here in the public, because I know residents do come to me often asking, can I get a sign that says residents only? And, the answer that I've been told to give is that we cannot do that. But if the administration, if we can look into it to make sure that that's still the answer, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Condon, sorry, let's. Are you had your mic? No. Okay, Councilor Crowe. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I got you now.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Jack, for being here, and I'll check up with you on a couple of other projects.
Oh, I
that
see.
we're
They're
working on.
switched. Okay,
But I actually you had talked about the tool design and did the initial public outreach, and there was events. I know when we did the first prioritization plan, it was really a concerted effort to make sure that, we really did engage the public and look at all these different ones. So I hadn't seen any of those events, maybe you talked to city staff or anything, but so how did we vet what the next prioritization plan? Is this just at the beginning and then we're gonna bring it to the public? Because there was a lot of conversations around certain areas and, just to kind of put that together, that really had a lot of community input.
From my point of view, the plan itself in draft needs to be vetted significantly. What has been done to date was really an initial outreach on the second round of the plan. So we're really pulling all that together and pulling together the notion of comprehensive planning and that assessment of existing conditions versus needs. I don't think we want to move forward in a vacuum as staff. I think that definitely needs to be brought before the community and vetted and input gathered on it. Before you tonight, I don't have a plan or a schedule for doing that.
All right, I just want to make sure that we
There-
do
there's
that,
certainly
because
an
I think
intent on my part.
that's, that's key.
Yes,
In
I understand.
figuring out what we should prioritize. So, but thank you.
All right. Any other councilors? So I will speak then myself. Jack, thanks so much. I mean, in 6 months, you've really come up to speed on, the new laws and context we have here in Malden, Massachusetts. So I thank you for that great effort. And, I do echo, you hear from the councilors. And this isn't really, this is because of the transition of bringing you on. Our prior transportation planner, John Alessi, had started up into this, and so he helped hire Tool Design. Tool Design was hired before Jack came on board, so he's picking up. So I appreciate that, and one of the things we do need to do is work to, before May 2025, have that community outreach so we can get input on that. So we'll look forward to working with you as a council and getting the word out. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but we can certainly, your boss Debbie Burke is here. We're that. I mean, the other aspect is we did have a pretty robust thing in terms of the transit action plan, but the complete streets plan, I know it was relatively robust in 2017. So we do have a little more work to do on that. So certainly respond on that. But do you have any other thoughts before you wrap up, or just?
The next phase of that complete streets program funding is being done in 2 cycles. So there is a second cycle in October 2024. So there is time actually to vet a plan without missing a funding opportunity. It's really a timing on that funding opportunity. We don't lose any dollars on the table. If we have something ready to go, I mean, we already have some projects that if we want to put forth a funding application, then we will. As I noted, we've got 13 other applications for different programs going right now. We're always looking for money and trying to match up needs to money. Having the complete plan, though, is going to take us far into the future with a strategy and a list of projects. But that particular program, we will have an opportunity in October 24.
So October 24, we could, if we have some meeting between now and May 2024 with public input, and it seems like we need more, we could wait until October 2024 if we wanted to get more community feedback. That's so
correct.
It's both, because my understanding of the Complete Streets program, we first have to submit an updated Complete Streets plan, and then we apply for particular projects, and that's what we did. So this deadline either of May or October is really just getting the plan in, right, so that we're eligible, or will we be applying for projects as well? Is that, so?
In May, you can apply for projects.
Okay.
And then again, a second round in October.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I guess
So-
we
But
can.
we can defer to October without losing any chance at funding.
Okay, so
We
I
just lose
think
time.
we'll have to, certainly we're looking forward as a council to working with you and the mayor and your office to, make sure we have a robust Complete Streets plan. Because I know, one of the things that Complete Streets plan was very great for, I know during COVID, there were several projects, there was extra money that came through. And because we had a well-vetted plan that the police chief was on board with, and we had good support, it made it easier to get those grants. So I think it's good to make sure it's well-grounded in that, what the project list, but I appreciate the work going into this and that we're looking at things comprehensively. So thank you, and welcome and best wishes, and we'll all looking forward to working with you more. And then next up, we will have our city engineer, Yem Lip, talk about the Center Street project. Yem Lip.
Good evening, Councilor. Thank you for having me here. So I'm here to give you an update on the Center Street bus lane project, which also include the signal improvement on Center Street and Main Street corridors. Now, the last time I was here, earlier 2023, since then, the mayor have signed the 2 MOUs, memorandum of agreements. With the agreement, we were able to this is the memorandum of agreement with MBTA, where they provide funding for us to upgrade 7 of our signals on Center Street from Main to Commercial, and also on Main Street from Madison to Salem Street. And in August, within the 4-month span, we have a on-call signal contractor that we use. We're able to upgrade what need to be upgraded between the May to August of last year. And between the months of September and October, as part of November, we tweaked the signal timings, the sequencings to make signals. The signals coordinated with each other, so whereas before our signals are fairly old and we couldn't do much with that. After the line striping done in 2021, we did what we could with what we have, but in order to improve on improve on the traffic, we have to upgrade many of our signals. So that's why we're able to work with MBTA to come up with funding to make improvements to these signals. I'm going to pass out a table that shows the traffic data. The mayor office have asked me to hire a traffic engineering consultant to help complete a study now that we have completed the work. And what I'm going to pass out to you is some data on traffic flow, just looking at comparing data from May 2022 to now in 2020.
Yem, can you name who's the consultant that was hired?
Tool design.
Okay, so Tool Design did this analysis. Thank you. For the record there.
And I'm just going to give you a few minutes here so you can look through the data in front of you. I think if you have extra, I would like to provide them with some extra.
It's good, yeah. Right, yeah, so travel time is less, yes. Okay, Yem, could you just explain the top of the table and what columns and rows mean? Thanks, great.
So as you can see on the table, so the data is compiled using Riders. This is a software that provide traffic flow. Mass DOT use it. It's what a lot of people use.
So what data are they relying on? What is the basis of that data?
Right, so the data is collected through cell phones, through navigational systems, anything like that, to analyze real world traffic real time.
Okay, thank you, great.
So if you look at the table in front of you, you look at the average travel time in May of 2022 for the day. You look at 5.1 seconds, and in September and November, you look at 4.6 seconds. You look at a reduction of
What stretch of Center Street are we talking about, Liam?
So this is Center Street from the skating rink to past Highland. Highland Ave.
Okay, so just for the first row there of, you say full day eastbound, can you explain what, go through May 21, May 2022, to explain what those numbers mean and what the final column means? Thanks, great.
So the first column is in May 2022 data. That's the, we're looking at traffic flow that equivalent to before the pandemic.
Okay, Counselor, let's have them, what? Okay, eastbound, westbound, okay, yeah, so please go through the chair,
Oh,
if
you know
you're
what,
asking
let me
questions.
go through so the
thanks,
first
great.
row is the full day average, eastbound, westbound, going, on Center Street, going toward the skating rink. Then the westbound is, the other way. And in the morning peak period, the same thing, we have eastbound, westbound, from the hour of 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And also in the evening, from the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Again, if you look at May 22, compare that to the November of 2003, every one of those, you see a decrease in time travel. And this is based on data that, collects through cell phones, through navigational informations, through the corridor. And this was done by, when we upgrade the signal, we're able to have all our signals coordinated, and we're able to make them more efficient. And, that's, so again, we're looking at, after looking at the result, I see that there's, there's definitely positive impact after we complete the signal improvements.
So yeah, just for a little clarification, so in May 2022, what was the conditions out on Center Street at that moment when that data was collected? What was the status of the pavement and the signals at that moment? What was the?
So in May of 2022, that's when this mayor just signed the MOU for the
Okay.
signal work. And at that time, what was done was on Center Street, we implement the line striping. And we've done what we could with our existing traffic signals.
So that was the bus lane and bike lane markings plus the old traffic signal
Correct.
equipment that was the city's, okay? And
Correct.
then
And-
September 2023, what changed in September 2023?
And in August, we upgrade all our signals, and between September and November, we tweak the timings, we tweak the sequences.
And the condition right now, or when November 2023, so what, that means the bus lanes and bike lanes were there, and there was new traffic signal equipment and tweaks, okay. All right, so I'll open up to questions now, so, okay, so, yeah, sure. All right, so Councilor Simonelli, ask your question, yeah.
Thank you. All right, so the reason why I had asked you to come up here, Yem, was, you know that the council's been going through a lot of turmoil on both sides, on the whole Route 60 corridor, again, I'm not trying to, stir up the leaves from the bottom of the pond, because we can't go back in time, and we wish we all could. But I did let the public know that I would investigate and look into this and come out with some reasonings on it. Like I said before, I wasn't here when this thing was put into effect. I was a Johnny-come-lately on it, and I just wanted to kind of wrap my head around it. And, so after doing all this extensive reading, 2.5-hour videotape that I had to watch, and all the minutes to the meetings, it was under the impression that there was going to be a sort of our own in-house traffic study, if you will, with the lights on changing so it was agreed upon A, B, and C, right? A being the lights would be transformed into this new system right, of sequence of lights, so they would be in sync with one another to cut down on the traffic time on the Route 60 corridor. And then after that, then they would put down the painting on the streets for all that stuff there. So where did it get lost during the time when you found out that the light system couldn't be easily exchanged, like the MBTA had promised us, right? So what was done at that point? Did somebody say, go ahead and put the paint down on the road anyway before we did that? Because that would have helped us out a lot on as far as the traffic study was concerned with the light system being up there first. And then we would see if there was gonna be significant problems, and then the next step would have been if it was working, to put down the paint on the ground. So, how did that get lost? Do you remember what happened with that?
So, ideally, yes, if money was not an issue, yes, we would go ahead and upgrade our signals and do what we can do to mitigate any potential traffic impact. The project was approved in 2021 by, you guys, and it was kicked back down.
Some of these guys, not you guys, some of these guys.
For
Let's
the
keep that
council.
clear.
But you have to be a part of the carrying out the project.
Well, I'm part of it now.
Yeah. So, the Traffic Commission also approved it, and the project include 2 grants. One was to employ pavement marking and to put down the line striping on Center Street, including Main Street. That grant has a sunset date, and that has to be done within a certain period of time. The other part of the grant, I'm sorry.
So what I'm saying is that.
Councilman, let Mr. Yep
Well, 'cause he's not
explain. You
answering-
ask him a question, let him answer a question.
But he's not answering my question.
You asked him what happened.
He's not
Let him
answering my
explain.
question.
I just let him answer the question, then then you can follow up, okay? Let him answer the question, please. Great.
And the other part of the grant was to help improve the traffic signals, and that came later, a little bit later. And again, working with the timeline and working with the deadline of the payment of the first grant. Like I said, ideally, if money wasn't an issue, upgrading the signal, yes, that should have been the first phase, then follow the second phase. But again, we're dealing with, at the time in 2021, there were a lot less cars on the road. And for this, for us to implement the line striping at the time, wasn't much of an impact. And we're talking about, I don't have the data in front of me, but we have a lot, if you remember, there were a lot less cars on the road.
In 2021?
In 2021, as opposed to say
To now?
2019, and now.
More cars.
More cars. Now, I believe we're looking at the same level of, traffic as is before the pandemic, which would say it's 2019. So we're comparing apple to apple. When you're looking at the table in front of you, we're looking at the same data, the same volume of traffic.
So my question to you is that originally, you guys had like an A, B, and C, but I even think a D agenda. And I remember getting elected on the council, and I don't even think I was inaugurated yet, but it was a big traffic commission meeting. And the bone of contention was that the paint went down on the roads before the traffic lights got changed to be in sync with one another. So I guess, again, my question is that, how come it was never brought back before, like the traffic commission or the city council or this oversight committee to explain that to the council and say, look, you know, we've run into this problem, and we've discussed it, we found out, hey, we're supposed to do A first, which would be the lights, but we found out that the lights themselves are so antiquated that we can't fix them. But the MBTA said, I think this is what ended up happening, the MBTA said that if the city of Malden puts up the money to, which I think was like $350,000 or something, right? If they put up the money, if we put up the money, and they would somehow reimburse us down the road for it. And I think, you know, at that point, you know, the mayor's office said, yeah, let's do it. I mean, we gotta do it now because the paint's on the ground now, and, you know, so, you know, we really didn't have much of a choice.
It would have taken a lot longer to
Right.
put
So-
that part out
Yeah.
to bid, select a vendor, and then execute the contract.
So I just, you know, so I'm just asking, because I'm looking under here on April 13th of 2021, in the meetings, of the minutes of the meetings, it says that the Council President Anderson asked for volunteers to serve on the evaluation committee. And then there was an evaluation committee put together. And
We met with MBTA,
who did?
myself, Maria, and the members that are, you know, part of the committee would be, I believe it was.
But what about
I think Councilor
Winslow
Spatafora and
Fay.
Councilor Crowe, were you? Okay, Councilor
And
Spatafora.
everybody was-
Councilor Crowe, great.
Aware of when the meeting took place and what was being discussed, and we do have minutes, you know, that goes back to 2021.
And you discussed that this was the problem with the lights, and that we're gonna go ahead and give permission for the company to put the paint on the ground first, before we put the lights, the new traffic lights down, that's gonna be in sequence with one another?
I think at the time, it was late fall where we have to implement that part of the project because there was a deadline with the grant. And then come spring, we will fully finish up the line striping and at the same time, worked on the signals. But, you know, again, it's procurement issue, it's the agreement where we have to either.
No, I understand, and that makes sense, that would make sense. But what about the council evaluation committee? Had you ever met with them? Had this committee ever met?
I don't have, you know, minutes for that, but yes, we have, I believe Councilor Spatafora, Councilor Peg, we have attended many meetings together, and we've discussed you know, the schedule, we've discussed what was done and what needs to be done, and, you know, it wasn't as smooth as I wanted to be.
No, I got you.
but-
All right, so the $1 million question, right? Who gave permission to put down, gave the go-ahead, the green light to put down the paint without having those antiquated lights fixed?
So, you know, the engineering department was asked to implement the project, and it was approved by the council to go forward. We have set a plan that was reviewed and approved, and we went by the set of plan.
Even though the part of the plan, which was having the lights in sequence to be able to, you know, do its own little traffic study to see if it was gonna cause issues before the paint went down.
So in addition.
Just went ahead anyway with it.
So in addition to this study that was done a few months ago, we have a study looking at potential issues, you know, as we reduce 2 lanes to 1 lane on Center Street and part of Main Street. There was a report by Tool, and that was shared among everybody, including myself, Maria, the mayor's office, and the.
Okay, so the way I'm seeing it, it would be fair to say that when you discovered that the lights couldn't be fixed, and we were, you know, running out of time, that it was a consensus amongst you all to let's get the paint on the ground, at least do that part of it, and then we'll come back to it like you have, and fix the lights and put the lights up. And that brings me into my final question.
Okay, final
which is,
question, all right.
how are the lights working now? How are we doing now? I mean, like, I mean, this here doesn't really tell me too much here. It's kind of confusing to me. But like, what's the average? Is it cutting us down by 10 minutes coming from like my section of Route 60 to like going to Medford, or Medford coming over, going towards Revere? Like, since you put those lights up, what has been the,
So, and if you look at westbound traffic in the morning,
Yeah.
there's a reduction of like 3 seconds.
Three
It's not a lot.
seconds or minutes?
It's minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's, yeah.
Again, it's not a lot when you look at the corridor as a whole, but, you know, again, I was asked to assess the condition of the corridor.
I appreciate your honesty. You've been
Okay.
very honest, and I appreciate
All right.
that.
All right, thank you, Councilor Simonelli. So I think it's Councilor Condon is up next, so go ahead, Councilor Condon. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for coming here, Yem. I travel that street all the time, and I think that the signalization has helped, but I think what's helped more than anything, people have found alternate routes. Rather than travel down Route 60, they go down West Street, they go down Medford Street, they go down Pearl Street. This is my area. This is what I see. You know, the signalization has helped, but the reduction in traffic is because people don't want to be caught up in that congestion. But as a city council, we voted it in. And there wasn't a lot of questions. When that vote come up, by the way, I voted against it with Councilor Murphy because I felt like that was gonna move the traffic into our neighborhoods, which it did, and I think it still has, but I think it's cut down in the congestion. The lights have helped, but more than anything, the neighborhoods have sucked up that traffic that no longer want to wait 2 or 3 lights here. Particularly if you travel Route 60 over here by the MBTA station and you want to take a left, the traffic is backed up that you can't even get into that left-hand turn lane, you know, and it was even worse before. But, you know, I'm not into the blame game, okay, but I think we missed it. We should have insisted upon getting that signalization done from the MBTA, but as usual, okay, they dangle the grant money in front of us, and it has to be voted now, or when you're not gonna get it, you know? But I think we should have taken one step forward, figure out what our next step was, and really address that signalization in the beginning and get them to agree to that. But we didn't do it. So at this point, we're trying to make a better situation because it started off bad, you know? So now it's just take a couple steps at a time and try to improve it. And it's just like, I think the MOU comes up in November. And it's funny, you know, because they want us to vote it in October. Just before the MOU. I mean, I had planned on, that was our chance to maybe go against the MOU. But now it's gonna be, either you vote it now and you're stuck with the MOU. Maybe I got it wrong, but I think that's the way they think in there. Thank you for coming, though.
All right, thank you. Councilor Crowe. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we all can agree that the rollout of this project was just not the way it really should have been. And it was always my understanding that the signalization was supposed to happen first before we got that straight before the lanes went down. I do feel like it, right from the start, as Council Condon said, maybe people didn't ask as many questions, myself included. Because, when the plan came to us, you would think that tool design, or whoever was putting the plan together, would have opened the cabinets and known if we could actually re-signalize. That should have been the pre-work before the plan came through. And it really happened, it couldn't happen, all of a sudden the bus lanes were down. We did meet with the MBTA, but that was after we realized that those meetings started happening. Councilor Spatafor and I were on just about every week. And it really, at that point, was, now we realize we have this disaster and we can't even re-time the lights, but we have these bus lanes down. What are we gonna do now? That's when, so it was not really the second grant. I mean, we did get the money from the MBTA, but that was not really how it was planned. The MBTA, because of the MOU, said we'll pay for it as long as you keep the bus lanes down until November 2024. So it just is, and it's unfortunate that we have this project with the main corridor in the city, and it was not rolled out correctly. So there's a bad taste in everyone's mouth, a lot of people's mouths, on doing this again. So that's why I think there's a pushback too. If we did the signalization, and we agreed then, we made promises to each other for the councils that were there, promises to each other, to our community, that it was a pilot program and we're going to evaluate it. Now and now we have this information with the timing. I do think, I hear that all the time. I see it in my own neighborhood. I live on a main street, so I see a lot more traffic. That cars are finding a different way to go. But now we have to figure out what what's the threshold for success. Is the 5 seconds the threshold for success, or if it's not? And do we keep this going after November 2024 or not? Do you know what I mean? So I think it really, because it was not rolled out correctly, the plan was inadequate to begin with, because the pre-work should have been done, I think, before we get exactly what we should have done. So now we have to sort of figure out what is the measure of success. Because again, that was even the last time we had this update, and the mayor had sent down the paper about having a traffic study done. To be honest, I'm really disappointed that it was tool design that was chosen. That's who gave us the plan in the first place. Maybe somebody else could take a fresher look at it, because there was obviously things missing right from the start. So again, now we made those promises again to each other that, we would abandon this pilot project if it was not a success. So now what's the measure of success? I think that's what we have to kind of look at by the time we decide in November, October, whatever it is, of 2024.
All right. Anything? Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Engineer Lip. Appreciate your presentation. In terms of the history here, prior to your arrival to our community, I believe the city engineer was Jack Russell. He was a longtime engineer. And having spoken with him prior to his retirement, I know one of the challenges that the city was facing, and he really was focused on this, was lead pipes. And just kind of holding the city together. And the age of our city resulted in, it doesn't really matter what the category of the infrastructure is, whether it's water pipes or our signals or our storm drains or our roads, everything is falling apart because everything's super old. And, when it comes to, the pre-work, what we had discovered is the city of Malden was one of the only communities in Massachusetts that didn't have a signal inventory. And that was one of the feedbacks that we received during this process. So do we now have a signal inventory?
We do, it's 90% complete. Jack and I submit comments so we can have a final report back from them. But we have the report, and we use it on a day-to-day basis.
And so to Councilor Crow's point, like what you were discussing about that pre-work, we've now done that. So in the future, this shouldn't be a problem. But it was definitely an oversight generally. And signals are just one thing. We're doing cameras down storm drains, and we're just trying to figure out what's falling apart, because it's unfortunately all falling apart. When it comes to this particular program, is there still opportunity for tweaking? So obviously, everyone who's out there on a daily basis, Councilor Simonelli, myself, Councilor Crowe, the residents, we have anecdotal experience of what it's like. We're sitting at this light, it turns green, it turns red, I'm not moving. Is there a place that they can submit that? Is that see-click fix? How is it best for us to submit that information so the actual tweaking can be done? We've done a great job so far in terms of tweaking since it was first rolled out, but I'm just wondering if there's icing on the cake that we can do to get it to the best possible result.
Again, so what you have in front of you is the data that, as a result of what we've done, it took me close to 2 months to tweak the timing with the consultant.
Okay.
Just based on current traffic.
I'll just give an example. I think I talked to Councilor Winslow. There's a chance that we've prioritized the parking garages in terms of allowing people to go into the parking garages. And what we've decided is maybe that's not the best use of a prioritization. Maybe it makes sense to deprioritize the parking garages so that people traveling through the corridor are prioritized. Is that an example of something that is still going to be implemented, or have we already started implementing that particular change? I think it's a left from center into the parking garage.
It's certainly a challenge we want to make sure that we, provide adequate time, green face for all the movements. Again, without losing sight that we're trying to mitigate traffic impact on Center Street. So for Middlesex, I've added a detection using the camera. We didn't have that before, so we have a camera that can detect traffic on Middlesex, on Center, and coming out from the garage. And with that, we make the control a little smarter. And at the same time, it has a unit that communicates with the other signals nearby. So, and certainly if we have, if we don't have to provide a green face for the entrance, egress to the garage, yes, we could make the corridor move a lot better, because that's, it's a short stretch between Middlesex and Center, and Main on Center, which, it's very sensitive to, backup.
Great. Well, I appreciate you looking at that. And then just one final question, if I may. Is the transit signal prioritization complete? How we were talking about the bus coordination and the emergency vehicle coordination. Is that part of the project complete, or is that still something that needs to be implemented?
So that hasn't been implemented yet. So
It has not?
The equipment is there. They're still working on it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for coming in. I know we've all been very eager to have this conversation, both up here and the residents. I wanted to just sort of highlight this. One of the things, I hope we can link this from the agenda so that people can go see it, because it is really illuminating. But just this piece here about the 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. westbound, timing dropping by 3 minutes in the morning, that definitely tracks with what I'm finding myself commuting through the area and what I'm hearing from most of my residents who had been complaining about it. They're perceiving that improvement, so I think that's great to see that it's backed up by data. One of the things that I'm curious about that I didn't hear, though, is how it's impacting the bus headways. Do we know? I'm sure this is something that could be easily looked up. I don't know if you don't have it offhand, that's fine. I'm just wondering, so that the T had come to us, I know many, many years before we did this, repeatedly, because this corridor was basically the most delayed in the entire system, in the bus network, was the slowest, in their estimation anyways, most in need of bus priority, bus lane priority. Has it improved the bus time, the bus reliability, the bus riders' experience? Do we have a sense of that in addition to the traffic metrics?
So that portion of the data, I don't have that yet. I will continue to talk with MBTA personnel, as far as, reliability, as far as, the timing schedule. And, from what I see, buses are getting around a little quicker, for sure. And once we turn on the TSP, I think they'll even more improve on the, as far as timing, reliability, and hopefully they'll translate to more riderships.
Yeah.
Of people using buses.
And is the TSP, is that the queue jumping, the turn prioritization when, because I get this question a lot, like, if we put a bus lane on the right side of the road, but those buses have to ultimately turn left when they're going eastbound, they are supposed to have priority to go ahead of traffic, and they don't right now, is that accurate?
So that segment on Center Street between Middlesex and Main,
Yeah.
we did install the actual bus signal for the bus itself, and that phasing is overlapped with the left turn onto the bus, onto the garage. So there's a few seconds that we allow the buses to go through
Ahead.
with the ability for that bus to make left or right, and that's not, that wouldn't be hung up if we didn't have that. So, I want to take it back a little bit. The TSP hasn't been turned on yet, but we have incorporated that features physically into the signal.
Understood, okay. I think that is an important piece, because I very much understand where people are coming from when they don't understand the logic of that, but to know that it is coming, so likely to see further improvements in addition to what this data is showing, hopefully. Okay, and then I just wanted to piggyback on what Councilor O'Malley was asking. I do think that it was a frustrating aspect of the process to find that, likely due to our own fault, we hadn't updated these signals for many, many years for a variety of reasons, but that clearly hadn't been done. Obviously, the T didn't expect to find it in that condition, neither did we. So what, in addition to the signal inventory, what are we doing, what can we be doing to not get in this situation if a future, I don't know of, I don't want to freak people out. I don't know of any other bus lane projects coming down the pike, but if we want to make any infrastructure upgrades where a signal could be implicated, how are we in a better position now to not have happen what happened here?
So, now that we have the report, now we know what we need to do to get our signals up to a level where we want to be. And again, it's just a formula of funding. We can prioritize what needs to be done, for quick fix, for, that would address safety, that would address, anything that can make the signal more efficient for the intersections. But it's gonna cost money. So with the report, we are able, we're gonna use that to go after grants, to go after road work where if the road work involve intersection improvement and signal upgrade, we have it in front of us. And it's a nice tool to have. And
Okay.
for sure, and it's something that we can make you guys are aware of, that this is something that needs to be done, and we can kick the cans down the road so many years, but at some point they have to be replaced and upgraded.
Yeah, understood. The last thing that I wanted to just sort of highlight for the community, I think when you mentioned that this goes from the rink behind the high school all the way to Highland, I was surprised at how extensive this is, and I wanted to just call out the fact that there's been a lot of work in the BB school community. The principal, my counterpart on school committee, myself, have been advocating for years to adjust the traffic patterns around the school. We were finally able to implement some of that this year, adjust the drop-off times to give caregivers more flexibility. I do think that that is probably helping here too. So just wanted to share that because I think there's like a lot of moving pieces that go into it, and I think some of that school side isn't as visible to the community, but I think it makes a big difference when you don't have that crunch of everybody having to do drop-off at the same time. We do have a lot of school transportation challenges, as we all know.
Yeah, it's a challenge for pick-up and drop-off, just congestion within the school zone.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. I think Councilor McDonald, you have not spoken yet? So why don't you go, and then Councilor Simonelli has a second question, and then I will say something.
I'll be very brief because I actually had the same questions that Councilor Linehan had. Even though we're sitting next to each other, we did not talk about those things. But I just first wanted to also say, thank you for the amount of work that has gone into this project. However frustrating it was to get started, I just want to say, I think that these really measurable improvements are in fact a success of the signalization aspect of this project. And so I think that's a good, I just don't want it to get lost. Like, that's a good report in this. And that I think that's really positive for the community, however you feel about the project as a whole. And then just to reiterate that I think that bus data is really critical from an equity perspective. 30 to 40% of our residents take public transit on a daily basis, and the folks who have the least means are often folks who are taking public transportation. So I just think it's really important to have that data in hand before we go through, a real analysis of the impact of the project. So I appreciate you working on that, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Simonelli, and then I will speak if no one else.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, great.
I'm just going to just sum this up, and, I think this was valuable information tonight, and, I don't think we're going to get caught looking the other way again, moving forward in the future. And I say that because I would like to continue moving forward in the future. I'm working currently now with Councilor Winslow on doing some things in my ward with the bump out thing that we got going on Willow Street. So, there's going to be growing pains here, and I know things have happened along the way, and I wanted to put that forward to explain that to everybody, that some of the things that went on and, things like that do happen, but yet we want to make sure that history don't repeat itself moving forward down the road. And, again, like Councilor Peg Crow has said, that, we don't know if the Route 60 project will ever work. It may not, and that's why we got until, they gave us a trial date until November to see if it doesn't. And, but I don't want to take it away from parts that's going to allow, kids to ride bikes safely or pedestrians to ride bikes safely to other parts of the community and the city, and I don't think anybody wants that. And I know they're growing pains, but I think that we'll be able to resolve these things once we get the kinks out of it. And I know it's been tough for a lot of you folks, and believe me, I'm swearing on Route 60 when I'm stuck in traffic too. So, but let's move forward from here, and let's work as a community, and and you guys keep raising these good questions and holding us to task, and we'll continue to do the best we can for you. So I appreciate you guys all coming in here tonight. I really do. Thank you.
All right, yeah, Ian, thank you so much for coming in, and your fortitude on this project is not easy. As you know, as a professional, sometimes projects do not play out as you plan as much as you want, and I think fundamentally we learned how antiquated our traffic signal system is and that was a fundamental thing that like I tell people, we had rotary phone technology in our traffic signal boxes, and how many people have rotary phones anymore? That was a fundamental thing that was hard to anticipate, and meant that the project as anticipated. So I appreciate the fortitude. And the understanding that it's hard. There were 2 grants, and it was a little timey. You can't. The other thing, you can't do traffic lane markings certain times of the year because of temperature constraints and stuff like that. So there was these constraints we had to deal with. So, so I really appreciate that. And yes, it would have been great if we did it A, B, C, D, and the council. I appreciate we did do that due diligence and really have that as a condition. It just didn't play out because of, other things. The other thing I want to say is that this was a project that was done even before John Alessi had come on board, our traffic planner. So this is the type of thing, before we had traffic professionals, this kind of stuff came onto the city council, and that's why we're dealing with this. And I appreciate the councilors stepped up. It was not an easy decision. The traffic commission kind of punted it up to us, so it was the type of thing. But I think you heard tonight from our transportation planner of really looking at things systematically. So when we make these type of priorities, we will also know what's going on citywide. So we're knowing where streets might be congested elsewise. So we're not just specifically looking at specific things. So that's the type of thing. We'll have a transportation plan and priorities to help make that happen. So I really appreciate that. And just another couple of things it sounds like we have a decision to make before November. A couple other things that I've heard anecdotally from Ward 6 residents who take the bus that the buses are operating more efficiently for them, so they're happy that people were riding the buses. It would be good to get that confirmation from the MBTA, because that's why the hell we did this. If the buses aren't running more quickly, then we're really questioning, because that's the whole thing. And the other thing is, in terms of a little bit of my perspective, is before the MBTA even proposed this, I was working with Malden High School students who were very concerned about the safety at the intersection at Ferry and Center Street and how dangerous that was, and observing that the highest speed traffic on Center Street from Maplewood Street to the high school was at the high school, where people, I've been living in over in Maplewood for 30 years. There's been bad traffic there. And to have the high school and Chevrolet School be subject to the speeding traffic that is a threat to our students was a priority that brought me and made sure that when the proposal was to have, one lane from Franklin Street up to Main Street, that was a safety improvement. I've done my own analysis, and looking at the 3 years before the project and 2 years since the bus lanes went in, 20% fewer traffic crashes on Center Street, 29% fewer crashes on Main Street in and around that area. So that's the type of thing. We have to, in addition to traffic flow, we have to look at safety, we have to look at bus operations and that type of thing. So there's these other greater criteria. I mean, ultimately, it's important to make sure that the street in the center of our community is safe for all users. There's a lot of people walking, busing, driving, and more so biking or taking scooters and other things, that we have to make sure the road is safe for everybody. And it's great to see we've made steps to make it more efficiently. So thank you for your fortitude, and let's do, plan to follow up before November to get those other pieces and have that information so we can act accordingly there. Thank you so much. And then it looks like we can go on to our next order of business, which is public comment. So, City Clerk, public comment is allowed under our rules. Each speaker is limited to the subject matter relevant to evening's agenda and must keep their comments to 2 minutes or less. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
We do. We had 5 people.
Okay, 5 people?
Yep.
The first person, William Spatafora of 37 Prospect Street in Malden. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, Bill Spatafora, 37 Prospect Street, Malden. As all of you know, I've been quite outspoken about the traffic in the city caused by the bike and bus lanes. Tonight, I'm here to urge all of you to not renew the contract with the MBTA once it expires, and to remove the bus lane along Route 60, restoring 2 lanes of motor vehicle traffic for the full length of the corridor. I believe there is room for compromise, though, along Route 60. I say we remove the bus lane, giving the motor vehicles their lane back, move the bike lane to the curb so the bicyclists still have their lane, relieving the traffic that has been caused by the limited use bus lane on Route 60. Before any decisions to continue with the dangerous traffic model along Route 60, a proper citywide survey should be done. A survey that can only be done one time by each resident of the city to see how they feel about continuing with the current model along Route 60. We tried to get this done on election day. It was shot down. Let's do a survey. There's no harm in doing a survey to see what the people and the residents, the voters of Malden want. And I'm calling and urging all of you to at least go that route and see where it lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person, Janice Rice of 103 Henry Street. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody that came. I'm a little bit more confused than when I started out, but anyway, I agree with everything that Billy said. And before you go ahead and jump on that money, that free money that's really not free at the end of the day, fix the lights. That's the priority before you go put more paint down and do this and anything else. And maybe focus on our neighborhoods. I don't know why that this whole thing got pushed through and the traffic commission told them it was okay to put their paint down, but when anybody else has an issue with the traffic commission wanting a stop sign or a crosswalk, it's like an act of God to get them to do something. Everything that goes before the commission ends up getting tabled and lost to never be seen again. In any traffic study that's done, you never get the results. Ask the people in the neighborhoods what they want. They're the ones that live there. They see what goes on, especially in my area, when you live on the Malden Everett line and you got people speeding in our side streets from other cities. It's not the people that live there, it's the people coming in to the city. They have no regard for our safety, our kids, our pets, people walking. They won't even let kids cross the street. And that money that they want to give away, can't we put that in the neighborhoods and not back out on Route 60? There's already plenty of areas for bikers there. The buses can just go back and do a lane like the rest of us in traveling.
Right. Good, thank you very much.
Okay,
Great,
I
thank
guess
you.
my
Great,
time's
good.
up.
Great, thank you. Great. Next speaker, Michael Sullivan, 22 Rand Street.
Good evening, councilors. Mike Sullivan. I've been a lifelong member of this town, and this is probably the first time I've ever come before you. And it's because of this Route 60 pilot program. If I was a pilot, I would say that it's crashing and burning. It squeezes traffic, and it pushes the traffic into our neighborhoods and side streets, and it's not traffic calming, it's traffic rage. People are on our streets are in a rage because you can't move through the city. You can't get from one end to the other. Let me give you a little history lesson. Route 60 used to be Salem Street. We moved it to Eastern Ave, and we made it 2 lanes for a reason, to make it an east-west corridor for everybody that's trying to get through from the west to the east and the east to the west, which at the end, in the east, it's the airport. So we made a major thoroughfare that goes through the city so that traffic didn't back up into our neighborhoods. Now, Councilor Condon pointed out these numbers. You can make these numbers say whatever you want. Of course, traffic is a little bit less. Why? Because they're going through the neighborhoods. They're going through the side streets. They have Waze. They have all these different apps that you can use to get through the city. And that's what people are doing. This is a mistake. We're in a building right now that fixed the mistake when they put City Hall in the middle of Pleasant Street and killed downtown. That's what this MOP is doing.
10 seconds.
That's what this, you gotta fix the mistake.
All right, thank you. You're 2 minutes.
Just
2 minutes.
a
Yeah,
last thing.
2 minutes, please, all right?
It's put traffic into our neighborhoods.
Okay.
It's enraged taxpayers such as myself. It's hurt businesses, taking away parking, and it's absolutely lacking in common sense. So please, I ask you to do away with this. Don't renew the MOP. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, Hilda Torres, 24 Fleming Road. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night. Hi, Mr. President, dear councils. My name is Hilda Torres. I am on 24 Fleming Road. I'm also the executive director and owner of my little best friend's early learning center. And the reason that I'm here is because I wanted to talk about the Fitzgerald Park. The Fitzgerald Park is a place where we bring our kids, not only the kids from the center, but also a lot of kids from the community, they come in there. Since the park is there, we don't have to cross the street with the little kids no more. But we need to expand the park so that way we don't have to bring our preschoolers into the other parks in the city, because we don't feed all the students at the same time in the park. So I'm just here to ask you to please reconsider and try to make that part, fix it quicker, so that way we don't have to cross 20 students at the same time from the streets, because that's not safe. That's not safe. Even myself, to cross Eastern Avenue, I'm scared to cross Eastern Avenue. And we have to cross 40 to 60 kids to go to the Green Park, to the park that is on Green Street. That's not fair. We love our trees, we love the park, and we just want this to be fixed this year, so that way we are not struggling bringing our kids and the kids from on the road again, and the kids from the buildings around it to other parts in the community. So please reconsider and to make it, this project a little bit faster for our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our building commissioner, building inspector, Nelson Miller. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, Council President, members of the City Council. Thanks for hearing me tonight. Nelson Miller, Building Commissioner, Director of Inspectional Services. I'm here to speak about agenda item 56-24, which is a communication from the Malden Historical Commission regarding 15 Ferry Street. Just in the way of background, real quick background, a demo application was applied for in April of 2019 to demo that building. I processed it and sent it to the Historical Commission as a part of our demolition delay ordinance. The owner of that property has been working with the commission for 3 years, well now 4 years. In 2022, they believe they reached an agreement to move the building, and as a result of that, the petitioner withdrew the demolition application. That obviously has not come to light, and as a result of that, the petitioner has since applied again with a new demolition application in December of 23. I did not process that application and send it to the Historical Commission. Instead, I felt it was necessary to get a legal opinion from our city solicitor as far as if the petition had already gone through the Historical Commission process. This is where the letter that you're going to read tonight may differ from the events that actually took place. So at this time, the Historical Commission does not have purview over that petition. It's not before them. There's not a hold on the demolition. I did receive a communication from City Solicitor Alan McNeil today, and it's pretty extensive. We can provide a copy to the council. I got it late this afternoon. In summary, she says, to review the above referenced matter, it's my opinion that the applicant, Alpha Business Center, has substantially complied with the city's demolition and alteration delay ordinances, and a demolition permit should be issued. So I will be issuing a demolition permit for that property. What I also have done as a result of that, understanding the significance of this building, is that I have asked the petitioner, whose representative is here tonight, Attorney DeMarco, I've asked them to work with the commission prior to demolition to see if there's elements or pieces of the building that the commission feels are important and would like to see preserved or somehow incorporated into the new building that gets constructed, and they're willing to do that. They've agreed to do that with the commission.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, thanks, great. Next order of business, we have our, was there any other, there was a written comment, but Hilda Torres, that was from Hilda Torres.
That is correct, yep.
So we can put that in the record. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody, for coming out speaking. So next is the consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of meeting minutes from January 9th and 16th to be approved, 9 reappointments to be confirmed, 3 petitions being referred to License Committee, and 2 papers to be referred to ordinance, and 2 communications to be placed on file. In reviewing the consent agenda, does any councilor have a desire to remove any of these items from the consent agenda for the purpose of further discussion? Okay, not hearing any request for a removal. Will anybody make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilor Simonelli to approve. I do note we have to, I believe, do a roll call on the personal appointment. So we will actually be doing a roll call vote on the whole consent agenda. By doing a roll call vote on the consent agenda, we will be approving the reappointments that are here. So the 9 reappointments that are in the consent agenda. By approving the consent agenda, we will also be approving those reappointments. So just to be clear, so we're approving the consent agenda. The reappointments will not be referred to personnel appointments. By voting on the consent agenda, we will be approving the reappointments with that. So if anybody, with that clarification, if you do have one of the, want to pull something off the consent agenda, let me know, and then we'll, if not, we will proceed with Councilor Simonelli's motion, and then, okay, Councilor O'Malley, yes, so.
So I see, seeing puzzled faces on the council, this is a feedback that, I've given previously, and I know some of the other councilors have expressed this. I'm hoping that we can figure out how to document on the agenda what the action that the consent agenda is looking to do for each of these items, because it's not clear by looking at the agenda what's happening. And so like what we just heard from Council President Winslow is, when we approve the consent agenda, we're approving reappointments. And so, and sometimes when we approve the consent agenda, it's referring petitions to committee. But here we have petitions. If the public or even us were to see that approving the consent agenda for a reappointment is approval, they might reasonably think that approving the consent agenda for a renewal of a petition is also an approval. So I think it's important for us to somehow figure out how we document on the agenda what exactly consenting to this consent agenda does functionally.
So, yeah, just to follow up, I know the clerk and I talked about this morning, so now seeing people's little puzzlement, I know Councilor Crowe looks a little puzzled. I think we will make that effort going in the future to make sure on the agenda that the consent agenda not only has the item, but it also says the action that we're consenting to. So I think that's good. So then, Councilor Taylor, do you have a question? You were up, or was that Councilor? We're messed up again here. So, Councilor Colon Hayes, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead. Oops, I just. All right. Somehow we
Okay, is that okay? So I had a similar question. So I'm glad Councilor O'Malley already addressed that. I had leaned over to Councilor Clough saying, does this mean that these are going to license? Is that, so that'll be good, yes, to know. But I also, being on the first time on the personnel and appointments, I thought these would be referred to that committee.
The practice has been over the past few years is that the reappointments we have been approving on the floor. So and this is the first set of reappointments that have come up with the consent agenda. So you can see there are a couple appointments that are not. So that there are a couple. So if you see some or want to have all those, it just would take some time to bring.
I see. Okay.
So it's just, it became a little bit of a practice in COVID in terms of trying to expedite the reappointments. I know in particular, like the Conservation Commission doesn't have enough members right now to have a quorum, so we're looking to expedite some things. So if we have to wait till personal appointments and, could be, another couple of weeks or more to get people. So that's just the practice has been. It's a little new because this is the first time we're doing reappointments through a consent agenda. So, I mean, another thing we could do is we could, if people want to take it off the consent agenda, that would just put it back on the regular agenda, and then we can have a discussion of whether we want to refer it or not. So that's another choice. We don't have to. So that's another choice.
No, I'm okay with that. We'll just talk about maybe in the committee about maybe moving forward of how we move forward with this.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
fine.
so yeah,
Go ahead.
no, this is kind of the first time, and it was, we sort of, did some things that way, but it is, I think some of it clarifying it in the agenda, and I think then I think the understanding might be the opportunity that if someone wants to have someone come to, or at least have that discussion of whether we should appoint on the floor or personal, maybe people can pull that particular thing off if they want, but,
Okay.
I don't, are people willing to go forward with the agenda, or does anybody want to discuss those individual ones individually? Okay. So we have Councilor Simonelli's motion to approve the consent agenda, second by Councilor Colon Hayes. And we will be taking a roll call, so clerk, please take a roll call, thank you.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. All right, so those consent agenda items are moved forward, and those appointments those members are reappointed, so. All right, moving on to the next order of business, let's see. So we are on to,
Paper 50-24.
let's see, where are we at? Where does the consent agenda end? So we're at the 7?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so,
Paper 50-24, mayoral reappointment, Charles Ioven, 42 Appleton Street, Malden, as a member of the Planning Board, having served since November 12, 1985, said term to expire March 1st, 2028, to commence upon confirmation by the City Council. And we also have paper 51-24, mayoral reappointment, John P. King, 67 Upham Street, as a member of the Board of Appeal, having served since April 4th, 2000, said term to expire May 1st, 2026, to commence upon confirmation by the City Council.
all right, anybody would like to make a motion on these? Councilor Linehan.
Motion to refer to personnel and appointments.
All right, second by Councilor O'Malley. Any discussion? Anybody have a discussion? All right, we just did a voice vote on this, right? So all those in favor of referring these to personal appointments, say aye. Aye. All right, so that motion is passed. The appointments are referred. Next order of business.
Council will now hold a public hearing on National Grid petition to install a new pole. This is paper 52-24, Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and Verizon New England, plan number 30772366. National Grid to install one JO pole on Broadway, Route 99, beginning at point approximately 70 feet southwest of the center line of the intersection of Broadway and Mingo Street, installing a new pole number 2924-50. And we do have a representative.
So, yeah, representative from National Grid, could you step up and introduce your name and your address? Thank you. Great.
Good evening, council members, council president. My name is Jose Luis Azurdia, representing National Grid Electric side.
Jose, could you just spell your last name for us, just to be sure?
It's Azurdia.
All right, thank you, Jose, great. Go ahead.
In this case, we are looking to install an infill pole between two existing National Grid poles to accommodate the installation of a feeder monitor device, which serves National Grid to monitor and flag any electrical disruptions or irregularities affecting the primary lines in the area. This is part of a National Grid modernization project. The feeder monitor device will be serving the Maplewood substation on Broadway. Thank you.
All right, so I declare the hearing on this project open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. All right, anybody on this petition related to installation of a pole on Broadway near Mingo Street? All right, going once, going twice. All right, I will actually hand the gavel over to Mr. O'Malley because I am the ward counselor here, so I just want to make a statement on here. I did miss what, yeah, okay. I know, because I'm speaking, yeah, so, yeah, no, I just wanted, I did meet with National Grid representatives, and we discussed a location of the pole. I was concerned a little bit about how close it might be to the intersection of Salem and Broadway, because we have a lot of kids crossing, but in reviewing the location, it's far enough away from that crossing that it shouldn't provide any obstruction, and we found a good place that, it's not interfering with anything, so I, as the ward counselor, I'm supportive of this thing, so all right, returning that. Anybody else? So we're going to close off the portion of the hearing related to people speaking in favor. That portion of the hearing is closed. Now, is anybody here to speak in opposition to this project? Anybody speaking in opposition to the project related to Broadway? Hearing no opposition, I declare that part of the hearing closed. The hearing is closed. I will entertain a motion to whether to grant or oppose the condition. Anybody want to make a motion? Councilor Simile made a motion to grant. Do I hear a second? Second by Councilor Colon Hayes. All those in favor? Say aye. All those opposed? All right, the petition is granted. Next order of business.
Paper 53-24, order that the City Council review the usage of the vacant property on Goodwin Avenue known by City Assessor's Parcel 091776612 and make a recommendation as to its future usage and feasibility as a community garden.
Okay, Councilor Taylor for the paper.
Thank you. So this came about because I had a constituent reach out to me a couple of weeks ago and ask, there is this decent-sized piece of land that is city-owned next to her home that is not a buildable lot, and she is hoping to start an annex to the community garden and have a space over on Goodwin Ave. We are planning on community meetings once we figure out the process of doing this. I would like to have this referred to the Public Holdings Committee, so we're able to move forward and investigate whether or not this will work out.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so on Councilor Taylor's motion to refer this to Public Holdings, which includes the Public Property Committee, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next order of business.
Paper 54-24, order that the Community Engagement and Inclusion Committee work with the Director of the Board of Health to hold a public workshop with residents to discuss impacts of excessive noise throughout the city. The CEIC is further ordered to report back to the full council with recommendations on how to better regulate noise from certain industrial uses, including but not limited to car wash, dryers, and large heating and air conditioning units.
Councilor Colon Hayes for the paper.
Thank you. So I had been in a meeting before where Council President had a constituent come forward about a noise ordinance from the car wash, and that kind of generated a talk from other things. Like, did we just want to focus on that one particular issue, or should we talk about other noise issues in the city and kind of combine it all? So we figured that we would just discuss that and go into detail in the Community Engagement Committee. So I'm just asking to refer it to that committee.
All right, any other questions for Councilor Hayes or myself? All right,
I'm sorry, I just have a procedural question.
Yeah, sure.
Are we referring the order to committee, or are we passing the order to direct the committee?
Okay. So I think we are actually passing the order.
Okay.
So to direct the committee. So, all right, yeah, so that we are passing the order to direct the committee to have the workshop. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So, all right. So, and then, Councilor Colon Hayes, a motion to pass the order, seconded by Councilor McDonald. All those in favor of the order, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed. That order is passed. All right, thank you very much. Next order of business.
Paper 55-24, the Malden City Council will address the open meeting law complaint submitted January 22nd, 2024 by Brian DeLacy, 1 Earl Street, Malden, against the council regarding their meeting of January 2nd, 2024.
All right, all of you should have received a copy of this. That's our obligation in the open meeting law. I think the first order of business is just to make a motion to receive and place the communication on file. So anybody want to? Councilor O'Malley makes the motion to receive and place on file. Councilor Taylor second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, so that is placed on file. The next thing is, I mean, typically, for these type of complaints, we have referred these to our legal office to help investigate. So how would people like to go about that? Anybody like to make that motion? So,
I make a motion to have the.
so Councilor Crowe makes a motion to authorize our legal department to respond to the complaint on behalf of the council. Anyone?
second that.
Second, Councilor Colon Hayes will second that. Any discussion? Everybody comfortable with that? And so there's a time frame to respond. So this will. So on Councilor Crow's motion to authorize the legal department to respond to the complaint on behalf of the body, second by Councilor Colon Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that is referred to the solicitor's office. And please, clerk, send that communication to Solicitor McNeil. Thank you. Next order of business.
Paper 56-24, communication, Malden Historical Commission regarding 15 Ferry Street, M. Ida Converse Building of Malden, and a Malden Industrial Aid Association building.
Okay, so I believe this correspondence is on record with the agenda. I didn't know if people thought, but this is, you heard a little bit about the building inspector talk about that. So anybody want to discuss on what we should do on this communication? So Councilor O'Malley, are you, yes, again.
Has this been placed on, have we've received it?
We've received it. So yeah, so you want to receive and place.
So I would move to receive the committee report?
All right.
Or the communication?
So Councilor O'Malley makes a motion to receive the communication, second by Councilor Linehan. All those in favor on receiving the communication? So, okay, now how do we want to discuss it? So, okay.
I'm okay with discussing it in open session, but I would appreciate, as the ward councilor, to refer this to an executive session to discuss any legal options that we may have. I think that when we do that, we should invite the building commissioner, the city planner, and Maria Louise representing the mayor, as well as the OSPCD director. This is a historic property in our downtown. It abuts public property, and there were commitments made by the applicant related to this building. We took action on some of those commitments, and now we're in a circumstance where it looks as though that historic building built by our first mayor will be torn down. I don't think anyone involved wants that to happen, and I would like to explore all possible options that we have. So I would move that we refer this to an executive session pursuant to our legal department okaying that matter. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody who'd like to further discuss that or make a second of that motion?
I'll second that. I also just want to recognize that Nelson indicated that the attorney is here, and I didn't know if Attorney DeMarco was expecting to address us. Or if we should,
I did not know whether Attorney DeMarco is expecting to address us tonight. I mean, we would have to vote as the council to allow that to happen. Does someone want to make the motion to have Attorney DeMarco speak, or would we?
Yeah, I'll second it. Oh.
Okay. So, okay, so to pass, so do we want to go ahead and discuss the motion then to, so to discuss the motion to refer to executive session and to talk with the city solicitor about this matter? All right, all those, do we have to take a roll call? So we're going to take a roll call vote on executive session, and we'd have to probably schedule that for next week. So, take the roll on this, please.
On Councilor O'Malley's motion to refer this to executive session, pending legal approval of that, seconded by Councilor Linehan. Councilor Colon Hayes.
Yes.
Councilor Condon. Councilor Crowe. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. So then I would ask that we, what we will need to do before executive session is make sure that the counselors have a copy of the solicitor's legal opinion that Mr. Miller mentioned. So we would have that to discuss on that. Do we, does the council want to entertain having Attorney DeMarco speak for a moment So someone may want to make that motion, then we'll suspend the rules. So Counselor Crowe making that motion, second by Counselor Linehan. Let's do a roll call for that, because there was a motion to suspend the rules to allow Mr. DeMarco to speak. Thank you.
Sorry, hang on. Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor O'Malley. Yes. Counselor Simonelli. Yes. Counselor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes, all right. So that motion to suspend the rules to allow Attorney DeMarco to speak is passed. Attorney DeMarco, take your name and address, and then, yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Roberto DeMarco, 17 Division Street is my residence. 350 Main Street is my business office. First, I received a letter from the Historic Commission. I did not appear before them at their last meeting. I sent them an update letter as a courtesy, as I have done, despite the fact that they had no jurisdiction for the past few years. I have been working with them on this matter, cooperating. My client fully cooperated. My client did more than I think has ever been done by an individual to save a public building. I stood before you in an emergency motion for us to get approval to move it to a site. There was issues as to the funding. I know that there are those in the public who have said we never asked for funding. I think at this point that is not a relevant issue, because what I heard at the CPC was that the public was against the site. There was obvious efforts by us to reduce the request for funding. It is on the public record. We told them time and time again that we would work on that amount. What could we do? And we started off requesting $600,000 because the move of the building was that much more expensive. We went to the best in the country to get this move done. And they came back with quotes. We had other people quote. Those people went to that same company saying, this is the company that can do this building. We then said, we need the $600,000. Then we turned around and said, you know what? We'll work with you if it's $400,000. We then said, we will work with you even if it's reduced from there. We weren't asked to speak, despite the fact that every petition before CPC that night was given an option to discuss it, and despite the fact that the member of the CPC, who's the Historical Commission member, asked that I be allowed to speak. But we weren't invited, not because of funding. This was because of the location. All of us got together. We all talked about that site. We thought it would be a great site. The public's against it. The problem is now that after 7 years of dealing with this property, my client bought the property next door, and then he bought the property, this property. And he then petitioned, as you heard from Mr. Miller, back in 2019. We went through the whole process that you laid out. You changed it twice during this time period for the delay to be lengthened. We've gone triple that length of time. And here we are. And I'm being told, after all those efforts, legal and commission, building commissioner, both agree that we should be allowed to move forward. My client is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's done everything he can. And yet, you are now entertaining the possibility to delay him even further. What is the incentive for the next group to come forward and actually cooperate with the city? If somebody who's been at this for this length of time, who's tried to move it 3 different locations, who's tried to do everything he could, worked with the high school, moved the community gardens of the high school on his own dime, set them up better, decided that he would move other properties, the mini building, that he would give the teen center space while he was having to take down other buildings. What is the incentive of anybody to cooperate with the city if you stop this individual now? please understand something. He doesn't want to do this, but we are out of options. He has a lender in place. We were already delayed in taking down a building that needed to be taken down, 1 Salem Street. We're already cooperating with the facade work on that for historic. We're already cooperating fully with trying to make sure that the cityscape replicates what was taken down by the city to build a parking lot, by the way. The sister building. Now here we are, having done all of that, we're being told, whoa, wait, we want you to consider another few ideas. We're out of time. It's over. At this point, my client must move forward. I've cooperated. We've discussed it with Mr. Miller. We will absolutely try to save parts of the building that can. We went back to the architect, spent more money on the architect just recently when the Historic Commission asked me to check whether or not they could incorporate the building. He said, absolutely not. No way to do that. They've looked at it. And these are architects who, by the way, took a building in Cambridge and actually elevated it 3 stories in order to save it. But this building can't be saved that way. It can't be done economically, structurally, it just cannot. So here we are, having cooperated, done all of this, put it on the market. We've been ridiculed saying that we didn't actually put it on the market. We've been attacked, but my client has stayed the course, cooperated, despite all of that. And now, financially, he's suffering. And he still needs to go through planning board to get his building built. He has a lender who is sitting there wondering what's going to happen. He's facing consequences of his decisions to cooperate. And here we are, ready to delay him even further. So the next time a client walks into my office and says, do I work with the city of Malden in order to try to work on this, and I have to look at these consequences that this client has faced, what tells me that we should cooperate? We've done our part. It is sad. I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised here, walked by that building, went into that building hundreds of times in my life. And I can tell you, I don't want it to be taken down. But we've ended the road. And so we have to face that consequence, and we need to move forward. This gentleman has done everything in good faith. I'm asking the city to do the same. We've been told by the commissioner that we have a right to take it down just now. If you're going to stop us or take action to stop us, the next time somebody wants to or is asked to cooperate with the city, they will look at this as the precedent as to how the city treats those who cooperate. So I'm asking you to really consider, we've done everything we could. We picked a bad site. We did it together. The Historic Commission opined. We had meetings. At last count, I appeared before them over 30 times. 30 times I appeared. I have even more letters of update to them. It's over. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you suspending the rules to hear me out. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilor O'Malley, did you want?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct the record a little bit, and I appreciate Attorney DeMarco coming up and addressing us. The current location has no approved project. It's next to a hole in the ground. The petitioner bought a building that he didn't know was structurally deficient. He never planned to do a grand project. He planned on renovating the existing building and discovered he could not do that. The location that was selected on the high school lawn was not vetted through the community. It was announced in the newspaper without any involvement of the ward councilor or myself. And the first time it did get public vetting was when it went before the CPC. When it was before us, and we were talking about accepting this as a gift and putting it on the lawn, I spoke against the location. I was not in favor of moving it onto the high school lawn. We talked about whether or not we could move it directly next to the building where it currently is in the parking lot that we own, because it would be substantially less expensive. That was not put forward. I don't know why. We talked about moving it directly across the street to an underutilized lawn on the other side of the high school near, what's the road behind the high school? Next to CVS. We were going to put it on that corner. I think the Malden Evening News used to be located there. So I hope that we are not at the end of the road because there is no approved project right now. Knocking it down prior to any project approval, I don't understand why. To me, it feels a bit like in spite. I think that going through the process of approving whatever you propose to build there is probably the next step that's logical. Knocking down a historic building without giving every option a chance, I think is not. But I do appreciate, and I know that you have been earnestly working towards this, and I know that your client has. I know the city has options too, and I would like us to explore that with our internal team, including any legal options that we may have. But I do appreciate you coming before us.
Council, if I may reply to a couple of those things. First and foremost, we did vet the sites, the alternative sites. Those were not possible. We went through the process of examining each one of those sites. So there was due diligence done on that, and this was discussed at different times with the different stakeholders on those sites. There was no reason to discuss the site across the street because we couldn't do it structurally for what's subsurface. There are my understanding that there are utilities subsurface there, and it would not make it possible to get it to that location. If I remember correctly, this is a couple of years ago. Additionally, we had public meetings. We met with the high school students on the lawn. We met with various members of the community at different times. These were public meetings with the Historic Commission over and over and over again. They were published, they were put out there. So, and we met in this city council chamber when those sites, so it was not the first time, the CPC meeting, and I have to object to that. We work together very well, but I have a disagreement on that item. And I can respectfully disagree. I appreciate everything you've done, and you have been a great partner in trying to move forward with this project. But we did not just spring it on the community. This was out there. The plans were out there. There were news stories out there. There were photos that were put into the local newspapers of this site. This was out there. There was plenty of engagement online. I can point at the different comments that social media where people talked about it after the news stories hit. So there was plenty of possibilities. And the community came out against it. And look, like I said, I don't want to destroy that building at all. And the getting of the permit to take it down does not mean we begin the process of taking it down. So we need to, you're right, we do need to move forward with that. But we have parties that are extremely interested in making sure that we vest the right, because if I turn around and I start the process after getting approval, what I'm going to end up in is a circle of administrative nightmares where I get the planning board to say, go back and get approval for the takedown because we can't give you an approval to build a building until you have approval to take down the building. So, you know, we're going to be stuck there. So I do need this piece in order to properly state, okay, we are able to put the new building board that we're seeking for you to approve in this site. There's a very specific reason why we haven't moved forward with that, because I've heard that statement before. I am not telling you that we will rip the building down. My client may have to, so I can't tell you, and I want to go very clearly on the record. Once we have that permit, we may be forced to take it down immediately. We have vested interest. But if we can prevent doing that, we would. But we have other interests out there. We are under a lot of pressure at this point, and you have an individual who is being subjected to more than the ordinance ever required of anybody. And I appreciate your position, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Attorney DeMarco. And then
Any other questions?
Councilor McDonald, I know like we're at 9, getting up on 9:20, so let's, if you can keep your comments brief or questions brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney DeMarco. I just have a very brief question. You may know that we received a letter from the Community Preservation Commission before tonight in this update on the demolition permit, asking us to look, to do what we can to save the house and recommending that we look at the parking lot the city-owned parking lot next door. Is that one of the locations that you examined, and what was the result of that?
It was determined that it was not a viable location for this based upon traffic, potential congestion, the parking needs of the city, and a couple of other issues which I don't recall right now.
So not an engineering issue, but a need for the space.
It wasn't an engineering issue, it was a usage issue.
Got it, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So let's, we've made the motions, and thank you, Attorney DeMarco.
Thank you for your time, Mr. President.
Let's go on to the next order of business. Thank you, great.
Paper 57-24, communication. The Board of Registrars of Voters respectfully submits to the City Council the Board's recommendation for papers necessary for the upcoming 2024 presidential election cycle, numbered as 58, 59, and 60, series of 2024, that the Council orders early voting hours, polling locations, and the authority for the Chief of Police or his designee to assign precinct offices.
So on Councilor Condon's motion to receive and place the communication file, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor? Aye. The clerk will read the three papers and present on behalf of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Paper 58-24 ordered that the City Council adopts in-person early voting for the 2024 election cycle and to designate the City Clerk's office, 215 Pleasant Street, room 220, as the central early voting polling location during the dates and times to be determined as voted on by the Board of Registrars of Voters, which are as follows in the body of the paper. Paper 59-24 ordered that the City Council designate the polling locations for the entirety of the 2024 election cycles as follows. Paper 60-24 ordered that the city detail a minimum of one officer for each polling building to be determined by the Chief of Police and the City Clerk or their respective designees. And so, speaking on behalf of the Board of Registrars of Voters, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. This is really just kind of housekeeping. We're setting the early voting hours, and everybody has a schedule that's attached to the body of that paper. We're going to run them right out of the City Clerk's office because as vote by mail has become more popular, early in-person voting has lessened. So we don't really have the numbers to justify a separate polling location, hiring staff and everything. We're going to run it right out of our office upstairs. The thing that we're excited about this year is that you'll note, leading up to the presidential primary in February, we have, I'm sorry, I can't find it, right here, February 23rd. We are experimenting for the first time this year with mobile early voting locations. We've never done it before, but we'd like to try to take the polling out to the people and try to touch some of those communities that are maybe being underserved or a little nervous about voting, or in this case, some people think that they're not even allowed to vote anymore. And what I mean by that is our first mobile location that we found is going to be the Bridge Recovery Center at 239 Commercial Street. I've heard from a lot of people say, well, I've done time before, so I don't think I can vote ever again. And in some states that is true, but not so in Massachusetts. So we want to get the word out there that if you have done time, you don't lose your right to vote forever. Once you pay your service to society, you get that back. And so that Friday, the 23rd, and again, this will be widely advertised, but I'd like to just tell you guys tonight, it's the day before the deadline to register to vote. So we're going to the Bridge. Paul Hammersley has been wonderful in helping us organize this. We're going to do same day voter registration and early voting right there. So if anybody is not voted in a long time or not ever voted, we're going to kind of work that through. And also, not just for clients, it's going to be open up to the public as well. So we're excited about that. The second paper really is just designating your polling locations, the same 23, including the DAV, our new location from last November, same as last year. And the paper for the offices is just makes sense. You have the authority to designate your police offices, but I thought you'd probably just want the Chief of Police to handle that for you. So that's the nature of these three papers.
So any council have questions? I have one question myself. So just in terms of designating the city clerk's office, what will you do in terms of public privacy for that, in terms of voting privacy? Thank you.
We set up polling booths on the second floor. So somebody comes to my desk, my window, we check them in, we issue them their ballot, and then there are polling booths set up down the hall where they can have the same privacy, just like if, it's the same voting booth they use on election day, those round ones. And then they seal their ballot into the envelope, sign the outside of it, acknowledging that they've given it back to us, and we process it that way.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Councilor McDonald?
That's just fantastic. I'm so excited to hear that, and I hope that it shows up in the Globe and we inspire other cities to do the same. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Okay, good. So, Councilor Linehan?
I was basically going to say the same thing. That's amazing, and congrats, and thank you for being a leader on that. That's amazing.
All right, and Councilor Taylor?
No, that's
no,
okay.
okay. Oh,
That's okay. I was going to jump up and
I
down.
gotta reset this again, so Councilor Colon-Hayes, so great. So.
Miss Taylor. No.
Okay, all right.
I was going to jump up and down and say yay, but I thought that might be inappropriate. Unbelievable effort by the clerk's office. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, so on Councilor Colon-Hayes' motion to adopt the three orders, seconded by Councilor Taylor. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion is, those orders are adopted. Next order of business.
Committee report, paper 61-24, the Standing Committee on Rules and Ordinance, to whom was referred paper 23, series of 2024, having considered the same, make the following report. Committee recommends this paper out favorably to the full council as amended by striking December 31st, 2025, and replacing it with January 31st, 2026.
Okay, on Councilor Linehan's motion to receive the committee report, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, that paper is received. Councilor Linehan for the committee.
Thank.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
read the paper, clerk, and then
Paper
Councilor Linehan.
23-24, be it ordained by the Malden City Council that the Code of the City of Malden, 2.08.040, enumeration of boards and commissions, appointed officers, terms, and duties is hereby amended by striking 1 year under term for clerk of committees and inserting 2 years in its place. Be it further ordered that the current term expiration date for Lisa Cagno be extended to December 31st, 2025, and henceforth coincide with the biennial session of the City Council.
So Councilor Linehan for the paper.
Thank you. This is pretty straightforward. So this is a move to basically realign our appointment of our clerk of committees into the same term as the council session, which is every 2 years. We made a further adjustment that would essentially make this happen after the new council is sworn in January. And the way it was worded when we originally docketed it, it would have had us approving that for 2 years in December as the previous council's outgoing, which doesn't really make sense, so we thought. So was amended to happen at the end of January every 2 years, and I think it's a smart move, and the committee recommended it favorably unanimously.
All right, and Councilor O'Malley.
I just wanted to thank the ordinance committee for doing this work. I wasn't able to attend, but it's been a great amendment that you made. I also want to thank Lisa Cagno for her work as the clerk of committee. You know, this is something that I've wanted to change for a long time, and I'm glad we finally have been able to make it equitable, that you have a 2-year term, you deserve it, and I look forward to working with you for many more 2-year terms.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, I have Councilor, let's see, who is, Councilor Condon.
Yeah, move to nominate Lisa Cagno.
Oh, okay, so it's just passing the ordinance change, so that's, we
right.
already nominated her for reappointment.
Move to approve the paper,
Okay,
moving from 1 year to 2 year.
yeah, so
term.
so it'd be moving to enroll, so it'd be moving to enroll the ordinance, yeah, so, all right, so on Councilor Condon's motion to enroll ordinance as amended, seconded by Councilor Simonelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that ordinance is enrolled as amended, and it'll be coming up for next.
May I move to suspend the rules for the purposes of ordaining?
All right, so motion by Councilor O'Malley, seconded by Councilor Linehan to suspend the rules so that we can, I'm losing it here. Ordain this tonight. So let's take a roll call on that. Thank you.
Councilor Colon-Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon.
Yes.
Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Taylor.
Yes.
Council President Winslow.
Yes. So,
Move to ordain.
seconded by, motion to ordain by Councilor O'Malley, seconded by Councilor Linehan. Let's take a roll call vote on that as well. Thank you.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon.
Yes.
Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. All right, next order of business.
Paper 62-24, Committee Report, the Standing Committee on Finance, to whom was referred papers 11, 12, 14, and 15, series of 2024, having considered the same, make the following report. Committee recommends these papers out favorably to the full council. Additionally, the committee recommends paper 13, series of 2024, out favorably as amended to the full council, pending the CPC's receipt of the final project design.
So on Councilor McDonald's motion to receive the committee report, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That report is received. Clerk will read the paper.
Paper 11-24, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being in the amount of $983,000, be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act Fund for the following project: Malden River Works, $983,000 from budgeted reserve.
So Councilor McDonald for the committee.
Thanks, friends. So we had a lot of great CPC projects come through finance, and we discussed them all in detail. So we'll try to move through these at a clip, recognizing the time here. So this one is about the Malden River Works project, which we all received a very recent update about in the full council. I think everyone is very excited and supportive of this project. From a financial perspective, we saw that the total project budget is about $13 million, which includes the Malden River Works, the park, as well as improvements to the Department of Public Works building itself, where it's located, some of which need to happen very urgently because of the conditions of the building. So, you know, there's a great plan for how the city's going to fund the entire project. This is a piece of the puzzle. And this specific funding is geared toward, from the CPC, is geared towards landscaping improvements and the environmental upgrades of the park area. And so we're very happy to recommend it out favorably.
All right. Any discussion? Would we have, Councilor Crowe, would you be willing to make a motion on this? So, all right. Councilor Crowe's motion to approve this order, seconded by Councilor Colin Hayes. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan. Yes. Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor Simonelli. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. Next order of business. Yeah.
Paper 12-24, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being in the amount of $730,000, be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act Fund for the following project: Malden Hospital Open Space Acquisition, from budgeted reserve.
Councilor McDonald for the committee.
So this is also, again, a piece of a much larger puzzle that my colleague sitting to my left, Councilor Linehan, among others, has worked diligently for years on. So this portion of this project is that in order to preserve the open space part of the Malden Hospital plan, the city is going to take possession of that open space and needs to negotiate a rate on that to buy that portion of the property, essentially. And so this is a good portion towards that payment. We recognize that depending on how all that shakes out, the final purchase price is still TBD, but because that has to come back to the city council anyways, we're the ones who can approve disposition of public property. So we recognize that right now what we're trying to do is approve this part of the funding in order for that agreement and negotiation to proceed, and we will see this again when it's time to hopefully approve a final agreement on the city's purchase of the property.
All right. Any discussion? Councilor Linehan, do you want to say a word or what?
I just want to thank the CPC and the Finance Committee for their support, and just to add also that in addition to what Councilor McDonald shared, that we will be sharing more information about additional grants that we're pursuing, and also just to say that the site is undergoing survey right now for subdivision, which is another step that's required. So all of those pieces kind of all fit together, and this is a critical part of the puzzle, so thanks for the support.
And if I may clarify, this is just to fund the purchase of the property. It doesn't have anything to do with we haven't gotten to the planning of any other improvements that might happen or anything changes. This is just for the city to be able to take possession of the property.
Thank you for the clarification. And I just want to thank the Community Preservation Committee as well. Okay, look, press your button if you have a question, Councilor Simonelli. Okay.
Yeah, so the use is to be passive recreation. It's about, probably a third of it is, flat enough to be passively programmed in some way. About 2/3 is, the vision or the idea is that it would be maybe trails, it's protected woodlands, it's very hilly, and then there's a lot of trees that we want to protect there. We'd be pursuing conservation in addition to this, so that's another piece that has to happen, but not active recreation, not sports fields, anything like that. No building of any kind. This parcel is just the open space that's sort of, if you're looking at the site from above, it's sort of to the left of what's going to be the new behavioral health facility. So it's being subdivided into 2 parcels, and the city will own the open space part, and then Tufts and Acadia will continue to own.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So it's going to be 2 separate parcels, and Tufts is going to continue to own the hospital part. That's all I was going to say.
Okay.
Any other further questions? So I just wanted to make my own comment, and then we can proceed. I just want to thank the Community Preservation Committee for their support of this, and the Finance Committee. I mean, this is a big step, because I know when the city and the voters of Malden took action to adopt the Community Preservation Act, I know a lot of people, I was one of them, to get this on the ballot, to have the community support this initiative. And really, thanks to all the people from Friends of the Fells. This is a capstone of your great work that allowed this resource to come in the city to help make this all happen. And looking forward, and to say this is, as Councilor McDonald clarified, this is to help purchase the property, which was a key priority of the Friends of the Fells and Fellsmere Heights. And then there'll be additional work to plan out how the open spaces program. So thank you so much for everybody, your work on this. So on Councilor Linehan's motion to adopt this order, seconded by Councilor McDonald, take the roll, clerk. Thank you.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor Simonelli. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. Next order of business.
Paper 13-24, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being in the amount of $175,000, be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act Fund for the following project: Fitzgerald Park, $87,500 from Open Space Reserve and $87,500 from Budgeted Reserve.
Councilor McDonald for the committee.
Yes, thank you. So this is the small, petite part project that we heard some public comment about earlier today. And I actually wanted to ask the clerk, I had heard that there was a petition attached to the submitted public comment. Is that correct?
There is, yes. Hang on 1 second.
While you're looking that up, just to relate the project. So this is Fitzgerald Park on Exchange Street downtown, backing up against the parking garage. It's a park that was done, always planned in phases. Councilor O'Malley took the lead on the first phase of this park. I have been working with the team and with Councilor O'Malley on the second phase of this park. It's not a large area, but it gets a lot of usage and is really about expanding the play area, improving the visibility of that section, which is currently, it's just mulch. And gets a lot of illicit use after hours, so we want to improve the lighting and visibility, frankly, and will be high use to the neighborhood. The note that, of course, was discussed in committee is that there's a required environmental removal of a large tree that is present in the park. That's not related to this particular appropriation because money from the CPC wouldn't be used for that purpose anyways, and the removal is required regardless of what we do or don't do with the park project, per the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, in order to remove a large underground storage tank that is right next to the tree. So that's the portion. Again, that's not related to this particular vote or appropriation, but was a lot of what we discussed in committee as well. So we noted that as a result of some of the public meetings, there had been updates to the design, so there was not a final design. So the recommendation was to make the approval contingent on the CPC's receipt of the final design. That final design is also a contingent. That's also a contingency of the CPC's approval itself, so it's a little redundant on our part, but nonetheless recognizing that that's an important piece.
All right.
Did you find? Can I ask? Did the clerk find this
I
petition?
do. So it's a 3-page petition. The petition is in the form of a question: why is the park beneficial to the area and/or your family? And it is signed with a reason. Everybody gave a timestamp, a name, a reason, and signed. It's 3 pages. It's approximately about 60 people on this petition, and I will attach it to the history of this paper along with the public comment letter that came with it, which was from Ms. Torres, who we heard from earlier tonight.
And are you able to tell? Are those people related to the daycare center?
It doesn't
Or is
look
it a
like all
public-
of them necessarily are.
It's a
but
range of
some
people.
Some of them, it's a
Okay.
range. Yep.
Thank you.
Did you want me to read just a couple glances, or?
Could I?
So, Councilor McDonald, do you want to have a read, and then I can?
Let's hear 3 or 4.
So I'll just give you a few. It says, why is the park beneficial to the area and/or your family? My son goes to daycare nearby, and this is a great option for kids there. The park is right near my daughter's daycare, right in the downtown Malden, so it's a great and convenient place for her to play and build community. We would love to have a better play space for her to use that is convenient. We rely on this space for our toddler to play in and socialize with other children his age. More parks, especially with updated features, are important for children, including my own, and I also help to build the community in Malden. Just some of the responses.
Thank you.
Obviously going to be supportive.
Thank you.
All right, so Councilor Colin Hayes, you had a...
Actually, City Clerk just read them. I thought we were going to move forward. I didn't know what the
All right.
petition was. So thank you for that. It sounds like, yeah, they were in support of the project. Thank you.
All right, Councilor O'Malley?
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank OCPF Director Deb Burke for helping with this project and hearing my feedback, both earlier in the project as well as more recently. So I'm in support of this project tonight, and I will be voting in favor of it. I just ask, Councilor McDonald and OCPF that in the future, whether it's in my ward or anyone else's ward, when a project like this is done, I do believe it is really imperative that we live by our values and we actually engage the community effectively. I believe that also including the ward councilor. Additionally, when we do something like this, I think it's very important, if you're going to be excavating or proposing to excavate at the base of a tree, particularly a very large diameter tree, that you do include our tree warden. I have received pictures of the excavation that was done, and it likely did make this tree very dangerous. And this tree has been potentially in a dangerous state since the excavation occurred. I wasn't aware of the extent until I got the photographs. So I do appreciate the work that has been done, and I just hope that we can learn from this, and projects going forward are done in a manner that is more inclusive and gets a better result. But I am fully in support. Thank you.
Okay, so on Councilor O'Malley's motion to pass the order, adopt the order as amended and seconded by Councilor McDonald, clerk will take the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes.
Well, yeah, so. I mean, we do, on our rules, we do have a pause, a brief pause. Does anybody need you want to take a 5-minute pause, or? Okay. All right, so.
I move to suspend the rules.
Okay, you can do that.
The vote.
All right, so motion to suspend the rule.
Can we just see, is he there? Like, is he just?
Okay. All right. So we're going to do a motion to suspend the rule to have a pause when a counselor steps out of the committee. So did we have a second on that? Second by Councilor Linehan, so clerk will take the roll to suspend the pausing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. So we've suspended the rules so we can proceed now with the motion by Counselor O'Malley to adopt the order as amended, seconded by Counselor McDonald. Clerk will call the roll.
Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. The motion, the order is adopted. Clerk will read the next paper.
Paper 14-24, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being in the amount of $67,360, be appropriated from Community Preservation Act Fund for the following project, Linden Rink Construction, from the Open Space Reserve.
Counselor McDonald for the committee.
So this is a project that's seen some evolution since it was originally proposed by Ward 8 Councilor Sika as an indoor rink. It's now been revised to be a little more accessible project and will be an outdoor, more multi-use rink, very similar and on the same footprint of the current rink that is there just outside of the Linden School. We were advised that the state of that current rink there is so bad that they're gonna have to tear it down unless they can start construction soon. And, you know, the kind of outdoor rink does have, you know, you can use it for other types of sports, or I think they said they'll stripe it for pickleball, for example, like in the summer. So there's more options there. Sorry, I don't know. Be careful what you wish for. Yes, with the pickleball. So we were very happy to support this revised project going through. And I should say, you know, this is another project that has multiple funding sources, including Ward 8 mitigation funds and additional community development block grant funding. I neglected to mention CDBG funding was also being used for Fitzgerald Park. So from a couple of different sources, but this would, I believe, complete the funding we need to move forward with this urgent project.
Okay, not seeing any lights on Counselor McDonald's motion to adopt the order, seconded by Counselor O'Malley. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley. Yes. Counselor Simonelli. Yes. Counselor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. That order is adopted. Next paper, please.
Paper 15-24, order that the appropriation enumerated below, being in the amount of $151,650, be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act Fund for the following project, Oak Grove Community Center design from Historic Preservation Reserve.
Counselor McDonald for the committee.
So this is to fund the 100% design phase for the Oak Grove Community Center. That beautiful historic building just across the street from the Oak Grove T Station, and we had a lot of discussion about the kind of community input we would need in the next phase, which is a part of the design phase, and different considerations about, you know, the design and accessibility and so on. And so this is really just to get to that implementation plan. It doesn't address the need for funding ultimately to do any improvements to the Oak Grove Community Center, which, you know, would be the next thing on the next thing to do once we have a plan that meets those standards. So we had a couple of pieces of feedback for the group there, and want to see the opportunity to move forward with the Oak Grove Community Center. There's a huge amount of potential usage there, as if we can navigate these issues. We'll also just note that the building is currently being used in part to house some of the city's archives, and so part of what the planning and design needs to address is where to deposit those archival boxes and materials.
So, Counselor O'Malley?
Yeah, I am in support of the project. I do appreciate that Mr. Rubin, who is our public facilities director, was willing to work with us on saving the trees on the property. Luckily, in this location, there hasn't really been any activity yet that would compromise any of the trees. And with that, I'm hoping to get the support to add a condition that we, while they're in the design phase, which is what we're funding tonight. We're not funding construction, we're funding design. I would like to amend the paper to add a condition that the existing trees be preserved. Hoping to get a second on that. And again, they can really make sure that the project as it's designed on the land, it won't affect the building construction, but in terms of the landscaping on the outside, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the paper to put a condition on, that's, all right, so we have a second, so Counselor Crowe, question on the amendment, is that what you?
Yes.
Yeah, so
And,
okay,
and I understand,
Okay.
wanting to preserve, but kind of like the situation at Fitzgerald Park, if there was maybe it's to do the best to save all the trees, or as many trees, but we might, to say that you have to save the trees. Unfortunately, if there's something that kind of comes up that it's not really viable. I think you do every effort to save the trees, absolutely. But to put a condition in that you have to save them all. A little concerned.
okay. All right, Counselor Colon-Hayes, and we also have,
I was
Okay.
going to make an amendment, a friendly amendment, if you want to take Counselor Crow's, amendment and put that in there. Living down the street, the community is really wanting to save those trees. So I hear back from that, but I agree, we can put something, like, if you want to amend that. Okay, every effort. Okay.
so I think I just heard from our clerk, Dan Koff from the CPC, our advisor, CPC staff, asked to come up and maybe talk about this. The other thing we may want to do is consider tabling it to see whether we can even have a condition. I think that's one of the questions we might have. But do we want to suspend the rules to allow Mr. Koff come up here?
I would move to suspend the rules.
All right, second. So let's take up that motion, take a roll call on the motion to. Okay.
Counselor Cologne-Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Yes. Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor Linehan. Yes. Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
Okay, pause again, okay.
We already suspended those rules.
We already suspended.
Counselor Taylor.
Yes.
Council President Winslow.
Yes, okay. So,
Sir, if you
Mr.
would come
Koff,
up.
thank you.
All right. Hello, Daniel Koff, 53 Glen Street, Malden, Mass. Thank you, Council President and City Council, for allowing me to speak. And for your consideration on this project, this is unique for us. A lot of the projects that we have approved have been from the city. This is a unique one in that it's come from a community group, and we really want to support community groups in advocating for projects and seeing them through. That said, that does come with additional challenges because they're not necessarily professionally managed. And so I do appreciate your concern and consideration in adding conditions to ensure that the community process will meet the needs of the community. And I also commend you in trying to come up with a condition that will ensure consideration of that trees will be saved. And I think that's a worthwhile pursuit. I do think I heard an option to table this and to consider it more fully, and I would be happy to meet with you over the course of the week to fully flesh out what additional conditions might look like. I just wanted to say that if putting a condition to say that, to mandate that trees will be saved would impact the design of the building, because then the building, the front steps may not, it's my understanding that the front steps need to be kind of realigned in order to be put back, to be made up to current building code, and that may necessitate the removal of a tree or two. That said, the part of this design process is to go through alternatives and to really investigate what those are. So I would hope that this design process fully explores all of those alternatives. I would just advocate for a condition not to mandate one outcome over another, but that they all be considered through this process. Thank you.
So, all right, so you heard from Mr. Koff.
So I'm still in favor of Councilor Crow's friendly amendment to take all practicable, I learned that word, all practicable efforts to save the trees. And I think in conversations with Eric Rubin, they had, there's not a direct conflict with the trees, but they had thought that if they did the construction, they would likely have to take out the trees because of construction vehicles. So there is potentially a way that they could do the construction in a way that doesn't require that. But I think that what your friendly amendment does kind of takes that into consideration. And I look forward to working with Mr. Koff to make sure the public engagement process is robust. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councilor McDonald?
I just had a clarification on this amendment. Is the amendment that the city will not remove the tree during the design process, or that the final design will not include removal of the tree?
To all extents practical.
My question is, who is the restriction applying to? Is it a restriction on the city to remove the tree, or is it a restriction on those submitting the design to make sure that the trees are included if at all possible?
So this is an important distinction. I appreciate you calling it out or asking about it, Councilor McDonald. So like the community group proposed the project to public property. So we retain the property, we decide what happens, it's our property, and our internal team led by Eric Rubin will run that project. The community group obviously influences that and is part of that leadership team there. But it really is our property, so I believe what we would be saying is the design should look to save the trees to the extent practicable, and that would also, impact what things they put on the construction documents when it comes to tree protections and da-da-da-da-da. So I'm not an engineer that necessarily can say what that would look like, but I believe it's both the design and construction. To the extent.
Okay, so what we're asking is that the amendment is that, that the appropriation be served for the communities and, with the condition that the design make every practicable effort to preserve the trees on the property.
I think that's the clarification. I don't think we could
Okay.
put in construction because the construction isn't before us, so.
Oh, yeah,
So you see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just misheard, so based on Councilor Crow's clarification, I thought we were saying, and like basically, in the meantime, don't take any trees down while we're talking about the design. But you were saying, make sure that, I understand you don't want to take the trees down now anyways, but that was the clarification I was seeking. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Linehan, did you have a comment?
Well, I only had a question and follow-up to what Dan mentioned, which is something that I know we discussed, Councilor O'Malley and himself and I discussed in the CPC meeting and separately, was this notion of tying an engagement process requirement. I don't know if we want to do that with the tree, like with the tree amendment. Do we want to say we keep it to the extent practicable and that there has to be a community meeting about it, or do we want to bundle those together, or would you rather?
He's nodding, yes.
Do you think that's the better way to do it? So do we need to amend the amendment then? We haven't voted it yet.
I'm okay with the friendly amendment. You've amended it, you amended it.
Okay, if it's
Okay.
friendly, if you're friendly, so,
Well, I'll defer to Councilor O'Malley. I mean, it is surrounded by Ward 3, but it's actually in Ward 4. So,
Engagement process.
okay, so that we preserve the tree to the extent possible and,
To conduct a public engagement process for design.
yeah.
is that good? Okay.
All right, so the clerk will read the proposed amendment. That's friendly amendment.
With conditions that the design make every practicable efforts to preserve trees on the property and that we would include public engagement process for the design.
Okay, so is that good with you, Councilor Cullenay? So we have a motion on the floor to amend, to put a condition on this appropriation. Any further discussion? All right, let's take up the amendment. So let's take a roll call on the amendment. Thank you.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Yes. All right, and now, any further discussion? We will then take up the, let's take a vote on Councilor O'Malley's Motion to adopt the order, seconded by Councilor Colon Hayes. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan. Yes. Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President Winslow.
Councilor Winslow, yes.
Sorry, Council President Winslow.
Yes, good. No, you got me.
All right, got it.
All right, there's no table of paper, so the docket is clear. Does anybody have any personal privilege that you'd like to do? Personal privilege? So we have Councilor McDonald up first. Thank you.
I just wanted to remind folks again that we have our Racial Equity Commission Town Hall meeting, Wednesday, February 7th, at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. It will also be online. You can join online. This will be a participatory event, and so hope you can join us.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, there will be, I understand I'm speaking in English right now, but there will be translation or interpretation services available as well.
Okay. All right. Anybody else at the moment? I do have one myself. Okay, Councilor Linehan.
Are you doing Lunar New Year? I don't want to step on
What?
your toes. Were you going to mention the Lunar New Year
I
celebration?
was gonna, so go ahead and mention that, so yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, I know you like to do those.
Okay,
So I know this weekend, I'm just confirming the time while I'm doing this.
1 to
So
5.
from 1 to 5 at Malden High School on Saturday, the Chinese Culture Connection is going to be hosting an amazing Lunar New Year celebration. I will be going with my family, and I hope to see you all there.
Yes, and I will plan to go with my family, and I think my granddaughter will probably be there doing a dragon or something like that. I guess this is the year of the dragon, and you're going to see a lot more dragons. I'm hearing that from my family, so I'm looking forward to that. So seeing that there are no more lights on Councilor Taylor's motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Simonelli, who just walked out, but okay. Well, second, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned.